across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning, the start of another week. Welcome to the Talk Breakfast Show. It is, of course, the home of common sense. It is the home of working Brits, alarm clock Brits. We're delighted to get your involvement in the show. Oh, my God. It just gets better and better. I said a line on Thursday, which sort of took off. We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, of course, have told Starmer over the weekend his position, despite getting rid of the sacrificial lamb Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. They say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. Did he sacrifice McSweeney to save his own skin? This is all about, as we know, appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation. You've seen since I was last on, police raiding his two houses. There's talk about the £55,000 he got for being crap at his job, but being given. They should take back loads of that. But I just want to start, right? Morgan McSweeney, when he resigned, said, in public life, responsibility must be owned when it matters most, not just when it is most convenient. In the circumstances, the only honourable course is to step aside. My question this morning is, if McSweeney had to resign because he advised Starmer to appoint Mandelson, then surely the lame duck Prime Minister who's cancelled an address to the nation this morning needs to resign as well. Genuinely, sources are telling us he's sitting in number 10, quite depressed, considering his future. So let's keep at it. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. And just to get you in the right swing, right, as the vultures circle, as they will politically, God, you'll know it's a bad day when these three things happen, Keir. David Lammis turned on him saying, I told you not to appoint Mandelson. Yeah, brilliant. MPs are lending staff, apparently, to work on Wes Streeting's leadership campaign, ... Not sure that's going to work because he was a protégé of Mandelson. And our Ange on front of mail, look, there she is, our Ange, she's had a makeover. Not sure who cut her hair, I think the council, to be honest. But anyway, she says, I want to speed up the HMRC inquiry into the fact I didn't pay stamp duty and get on with it. All of that, plus, and you would know, I'm a massive royal supporter. The old man worked for the royal family for many years. There is understandably increasing pressure on the King and the royal family to apologise to Epstein's victims. We're hearing more about Dodgy Andrew. Maybe he leaked confidential trade envoy docs to Epstein. Christ, I don't know what Epstein had. Well, a micro-penis by all accounts, but he definitely had them all where he wanted them. And the Telegraph reporting today that Reform, who have a big rally in Birmingham today, might be unveiling their shadow cabinet. Robert Jenrick live at Exclusive on this show. So many people, so many guests. But we will kick off with the First Lady of the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, who is now on, because you love her so much, twice a week. She's very happy because her partner is returning from Bognor Regis tonight. Good morning. Where's he been?
He's been in Ukraine, not Bognor Regis.
She's got all coy on him.
Yes, but I'm very happy. So he's coming back tomorrow.
And do you know what she said? This is genuinely true, Pete. She said to me early risers, she went, oh, you know, I just hope not many people text this morning and go, the Poppy and Jezza show. Yeah, of course you do.
You're definitely winding me up.
87222. Now, the Telegraph, it's all over the Telegraph. It's all over every newspaper. And I've always thought with you, your headline in the Telegraph today, Starmer plays his last card as McSweeney leaves number 10. What's your take on all of this, Pops?
Well, I mean, the usual line is that Prime Ministers that have won a historic majority don't resign in the first 18 months that they're in power. But it's coming to the conclusion that that's going to have to be where the Prime Minister ends up. Morgan McSweeney wasn't just the Prime Minister's advisor. He was the man doing everything within number 10. That is why this scandal has hit him so hard with Mandelson, okay, because he essentially delegated everything, the control of the whips, the control of candidate selection, the ideological direction of the party, probably what socks he was wearing, donated from Lord Ali in the morning as well, was also being picked by Morgan McSweeney. So for him to leave, people have said this for a long time, if McSweeney goes, the Prime Minister will follow. Now, Now, I'm not sure whether or not he's going to leave today. He did announce last night he was going to do a speech. Apparently, that's now been cancelled. He can't even decide whether or not he's going to have a speech today.
You've said, though, that sources have told you he's genuinely massively depressed.
He's depressed. He's unhappy. And you can see it in his face. Actually, last week in Parliament during PMQs, when Kemi Badenoch was skewing him, if you looked at his hand was shaking. You know, I haven't seen that actually happen with him before. You can tell he can't do it anymore.
It sounds a really hard thing to say, but it's the truth. He's a dead man walking.
Yeah, he is.
And there will be people who are like, oh, bless. No. I genuinely believe this man, sorry, this is my opinion as an independent person, he needs driving out of Downing Street. But, of course, we come back to it every single morning. Yeah. What's the alternative? Well, what is the alternative?
I think something that we've got to acknowledge, as bad as this Labour government has been, and it has been absolutely ferocious, it can get worse. And the reason for that is Morgan McSweeney, for all of his faults, was holding back some of the worst things that the Labour left have been putting forward. I mean, that's really how he made his name within politics, was holding back the Labour left. So if you're thinking about more tax rises, they're going to try and do a wealth tax, they're going to let loose on benefits claimants, they're going to completely unleash all of that stuff, they're going to change their foreign policy position, they're not going to be nice to Donald Trump anymore, so we're probably going to get more sanctions from the US. I mean, it can get a lot worse. And if you look at the frontrunners, you know, they've all got problems in terms of how they can get in charge. I mean, Angela Rayner hasn't answered for her tax fares yet. No. So
what do you think of makeover on front of mail?
Well,
what a makeover it is.
Her hair looks lovely. I don't know who paid for it. Surely she's got...
HMRC.
Surely she's got more important things she needs to be doing than get a haircut. That's what my mum would say if I owed her money. But look, Angela Rayner's got her tax problems, so that's one thing. Ed Miliband, very popular within the party, but
she's actually, sorry, he's just playing this. If you are watching on YouTube, she's actually put on TikTok her having her hair done.
That is funny.
That potentially, right, could be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Where have we become? Love to know what you think of this, peeps. What have we become that the potentially future Prime Minister puts on TikTok? This is me having me I nearly said the wrong phrase then. I nearly said it. I nearly said having me ginger. What's it done? But the hair.
Yeah, I mean...
It's extraordinary, isn't it? We're at one of the most, awful places in our history. Can I bring it back to Starmer? I absolutely get that, and I saw it the other week with you. I saw his hands shaking. Every time this man has said in 18 months, I have confidence in that person, right? This is him. This is brilliant. This is him saying, don't worry, I have total confidence in Morgan McSweeney. When was this? Yesterday or the day before? Oh, last week. Have a watch.
The Prime Minister chose to inject Mandelson's poison into the heart of his government on the advice of Morgan McSweeney. His catastrophic lack of judgment, telling us now that he did know, has harmed the special relationship, it has endangered national security, it's not the humble address, it's him, it's compromised our diplomacy, and it has embarrassed our nation. After all of this, does he have the same full confidence in Morgan McSweeney that he had in Peter Mandelson?
Prime Minister. McSweeney is an essential part of my team. He helped me change the Labour Party and win an election. Of course I have confidence in him.
Well, that was a few days ago. McSweeney's gone. Here's another thing. This is great. In 2020, Keir Starmer said, I'm different. Let me tell you, I'm going to change this country, and I have total confidence in my... I never, ever turn on my staff. Morning, Keir.
Hear me out. I had 8,000 staff for 5 years as the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I acted, I hope, in the right way with them, which is when they had victories, I celebrated on their behalf. I picked up awards on their behalves. And when they made mistakes, I carried the can. I never turn on my staff, and you should never turn on your staff.
Sorry, can we just clip that up for the rest of the day? Sorry, there we go.
Yeah.
You got it. That was 2020, but that wasn't last week. So he's had 5 years to be.
I mean, I was just thinking, watching that video, he looks like, for people listening, he looks like a different man in that short period of time. You can see how much has kind of passed in the Starmer. He's given up. His hair's literally gone grey almost overnight.
Something wrong with grey hair, Poppy.
He can't cope with it anymore.
Do you not like men with grey hair?
It's not the silver fox look on Keir Starmer. That's all I'm going to say. Apparently, he was in Love Actually. That character was inspired by Keir Starmer, by the way. Can you believe that?
Really? Which one?
I think is it Hugh Grant's character in Love Actually? It's been a while since I watched it. Yeah, apparently that was inspired by Keir Starmer.
So there you have it. Confidence in Morgan McSweeney. He's gone.
Yeah.
5 years ago, I always stand by my staff. That's gone down the drain. Apparently, he is genuinely inside Number 10, trying to work out what to do. Many people who know far more than me say he is absolutely considering resigning in front of the Mail. So how long can Starmer cling on? The Labour MPs have got Carl Turner, who's been a critic of this I'm going to say regime, this government for quite a while. He'll be on later. They don't seem to be giving this up. They want him out, don't they?
No, and they're genuinely furious. They are genuinely furious. I mean, I was speaking to a Labour MP who's more of the kind of blue Labour wing, which you would expect to be more sympathetic towards McSweeney. But this Mandelson situation has soured everyone from every single corner of the party. That's why I just think what will happen with Keir Starmer, maybe he's not gone today, maybe he's not gone tomorrow, maybe he's not gone in the next couple of weeks. But after the May elections, when his party gets absolutely trounced by Reform and the Green Party, I cannot see how he can continue in this.
I don't think it'll. I don't think he can drag it out till May. Genuinely, this is. Let's say good morning, Matt. Good morning.
Good morning, Poppy. Matt from Warrington. So McSweeney stepped down. That's the start of the dominoes falling over. Let's see who the First Minister is to resign. There's going to be a vote of no confidence in Starmer this week. There's going to be a challenge by the end of the week. Oh, it's going to be fun. Great to have you back, Pops. Bye.
Sorry, so actually now we've got to a point where I'm not even acknowledged. That I just sit here like some idiot and they go, morning, Pops.
You're using my nickname as well, that's quite cute.
Is Pops your nickname?
Yeah.
Lovely. Great, there we go. 87222, but get those voice notes in. What do you make of it? If McSweeney has to resign because he advised Starmer to appoint Lord Mandelson, and I go back to what McSweeney said, I have always believed there are moments when you must accept your responsibility and step aside for the bigger cause. We believe he's a dead man walking. We believe that Keir Starmer is contemplating all sorts of things. We are on resignation watch here on Talk Breakfast. On Saturday, or maybe it was yesterday, this is interesting, the sort of... Pat McFadden was a right left-wing firebrand in the old days. He sort of reinvented himself as the sort of steady hand of the government. He's the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. And old Pat McFadden, is he going to lead the charge? Because he said Prime Ministers have to take responsibility. Have a watch, have a listen.
In the end, it's a Prime Ministerial, well, signed off by the King, but it's a Prime Ministerial appointment, and Prime Ministers have to take responsibility for the decisions that they make.
I wonder who will be first to show their hand. Because it's all about timing, isn't it? I was saying the other day, you've got a bunch of MPs who go, my inbox is full of emails saying this man's a liability. If I go too soon and he survives, I'm toast. If I go too late and I don't show my support of the right person, my career's history.
There's a few ways that you can get rid of Prime Ministers, which we should be familiar with after the Tory government. I mean,
ask the Tories.
You can have a Cabinet Minister resign, which I think is usually the kiss of death once you start to have your Cabinet Ministers resign. You can have your backbenchers start to give in their letters. I think you need 80 letters, but there's a lot of pissed off MPs. You know, that is not an impossible thing to do, considering how big the majority is. So that is entirely possible. You could have the PPSs, what people will call the parliamentary bag carriers. They could rebel and say, we're sick of Starmer, we want to get rid of him. There are so many ways that Keir Starmer could be removed from his own party.
And do you know what I heard at the weekend, and you'll tell me if this is right or wrong? One of the very most important jobs in government is that of the Chief Whip. Yeah. There is one bitter and twisted person, which is Jonathan Reynolds, who was the business secretary. In the last reshuffle, he thought he was Starmer's best mate, was demoted from business secretary to Chief Whip. One wonders what he'll be doing around the House of Commons. I mean, it's like, I mean, look, here we go. Rayner as MP, says Louise, all the immaculately turned out world leaders, then Raymer stomps in wearing clown boots, the bottle of beer in one hand and a vape in the other. We're finished, says Geraldine and stuff. Yvonne, morning, Poppy. Jesus. Oh dear, Kira's feeling depressed. What about how depressed the country is because of this rotten, crappy government? I shed not a tear for Keir and never will. Morning, Pop, says Rachel. Keir Starmer should have resigned months ago after the 13 U-turns. He has to go. He has no credibility. I love the show. Joanna's in Salisbury. Hi, Jez. Ha. Sorry, that was really childish, wasn't it? I mean, here I am, 60 years of age, excited because a text message doesn't include Poppy. Hi, Jez. I honestly can't see how anyone can replace Starmer in the Labour Party. Everyone has either tainted themselves with sleaze or been entangled in or anointed by Mandelson's web.
Yeah.
What a mess. That's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the problem, isn't it? Because I was looking at the Labour front bench last night. I was going through the pictures to remind myself who these people are, because
Yes.
who the hell are they? And I was like, oh my goodness, not a single one of these people is actually organically popular with the population. Maybe they're popular with the lefties in the Labour Party, but none of them is actually liked within the country as a whole. Again, I was like, that is a really dangerous situation the Tories didn't necessarily have. They had a few genuine characters that they could bring to the forefront to replace prime ministers. With Labour, it feels like it's already over.
It's interesting what you said about Cabinet Ministers. Lammy's turned on him. MPs are lending. Wes Street, he makes no secret of it, although I will say, because he won't talk to me on air, the puberty blockers thing don't even start me. Angela Rayner and the tax affairs, and you look at the rest of them, their faces. Morning, Pete.
Morning, Jezra and Poppy. Great show as usual. Pete from Derby. I'm an alarm clock Brit, up 6 days a week at 5:30 in the morning. Could you do me a favour and just give me a shout out to my 9-year-old lazy thing of a son? Tell him to get a bloody job like I keep doing. You don't listen to me, so he might listen to you guys. Have a great show, guys.
The only thing about that is we don't know what his name is, do we? It's no name. So that was Pete. In where? Where was Pete from? We've no idea. Pete's son, get your lazy ass out of bed and get a job. You fexist... No, I'm joking. I mean, listen, he's probably... Oh, got to drop my pen now. He's probably suffering from depression because he's had to do his GC. Oh, I agree with his dad. Honestly, we had to go to work. Didn't you have to go to work?
Yeah, I had to get a job. I had to get a part-time job as soon as I was 16, I think.
I rang my daughter yesterday, student, 10 o'clock. Oh, yeah. What? I've been up since 5. I'm your father. I should be resting.
There's no such thing as layers. My mum used to do the classic trick, you know, when you get the vacuum cleaner in the morning, and she used to just go outside my door, like, zzz, over and over again with the vacuum cleaner.
I'm just trying to recover from that side of a story about a vacuum cleaner and what Kev O'Sullivan was talking about 20 minutes ago on Plank of the Week. John in Carmarthen. Morning, Poppy. So good to have you back. Why do you keep having that idiot Kyle on? Brilliant. OK. Now, I don't want to take this the wrong way, because we'd love to get everybody involved this morning. As we said, voice note 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. It's all about Keir Starmer. We're on resignation watch. We'll talk to Kinsey this hour as well about the pressure increasing on the royal family. And I'm a royalist, but something has to be done. But can we just talk about threesomes? Because... in all of his glory, Christian has left... I mean, I'm not having a go at you. Maybe a threesome is something that... Why are you laughing? I want to talk to you about a threesome. I cannot believe what I read at the weekend from the Epstein files. Andrew Loney, who will be on this show later, says he has definitive proof that an ex-Prime Minister... with what's he called, micro-penis by Epstein, and a prostitute, or a lady of the night, as Grandad used to say, had a threesome. And it did sort of get me thinking over the weekend, who are we talking about? And I know what I think, but I'll probably be sued.
I'm trying to think, what's
a
the
British Prime Minister, allegedly, according to Andrew Loney, who will be on the show later, he wrote that the Fall of the House of York's brilliant, really popular man. He says that a British Prime Minister had a threesome with Epstein and a lady of the night. Now, let's just look at the details. Rishi Sunak.
No, come on.
No. Boris.
Well...
I'm just going to leave this to Poppy. Who was before Liz Truss? No.
Theresa May? Not likely.
Not likely, no. Wayne Rooney, maybe. That's just a joke. Gordon Brown.
Oh, I can't see it. I can't see it.
Tony Blair.
Oh.
Anyway, it's 6:20. I mean, it does get you thinking. That's what Loney's saying, that isn't it, Christian? It's threesome.
This is a horrific image to put in people's minds as they might be eating their breakfast.
They're not eating breakfast at 6.
Horrific.
Imagine driving your lorry this morning going, oh, my God. Oh, my God.
You're causing a few car crashes on the way.
It does on a serious note, and I want to talk about royals when we come back from the break. I want to ask a question to everybody, because nobody can explain this to me. Maybe you will. How did this man have so much... just power, it seems, over princes, dukes, actresses, actors, politicians, prime ministers. It's extraordinary.
Well, not just British royals as well. I mean, like, royal families across Europe. There's what even worse than what's happened with Andrew. I think Denmark, their royal princess.
Yeah, the Crown Princess of Denmark said sorry for being involved with Epstein.
She was emailing and being like, I'd like to have your babies. This is when he was a convicted child sex offender. I mean, what's wrong with these people?
What did Epstein have? Certainly a microphone.
I was about to say an extra penis, according to the deposition.
It's just...
It is... I can understand why people get conspiratorial, because it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense unless you have to come to the conclusion that there are a lot of incredibly corrupt, greedy, venal people in the world who unfortunately have a lot of money. Because how could everyone have judgment that bad? Genuinely. How could it be?
And so many, and I'm not deflecting from Andrew or that rat Mandelson.
No, they're all as bad as each other.
But I said to my mother-in-law, I do talk to her occasionally, yesterday, those people who were saying that he was financed by Russia, you look at a man who's got not much about him with respect, who suddenly owns a Caribbean island, a jet, and has billions, and manages to somehow have a network of people across the world in high-ranking positions, and you think, what, you just woke up one day and decided to do that? It's so dodgy, but I do go back to it. I think it's the biggest thing that's happened to this country. And after this break, politically, we're going to talk about the pressure on the King. We've got Kinsey as well. This is massive for the royal family. 6:23, get your voice notes in, 0344 499 1000. We're back next with the Poppy Coburn Show, live and exclusive on Talk Breakfast.
We are going to shred the legal and constitutional framework that makes it impossible for us to stop the boats. We're going to start with the European Convention on Human Rights. Here it is. A very weighty tome. Here we go. This is live radio, live telly. There it goes, look at that. That is the European Convention on Human Rights. It's gone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25, Monday, February the 9th, and we are officially on Talk Breakfast on resignation watch over the weekend. Keir Starmer's, his chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, fell on his sword. Was he pressurised? But he did say as he went, I've always believed there are moments when you must accept your responsibility and step aside for the bigger cause. My question this morning is, if he's resigned for advising Starmer to employ Peter, I'm going to prison, allegedly Mandelson, then what about the man who made the decision? Front of the Mail, so how long can Starmer cling on? Labour MPs have turned on him. Almost everybody is turning on him. Apparently, Poppy Coburn is here. He is literally holed up in 10 Downing Street, concerned very much for his future. Andy, good morning.
Good morning, Pops. Andy from Birmingham, and your guest, Mr. Kyle, in for the day, I suppose. He's never in all week, is he? Anyway, Starmer is absolutely toast. I'll give him to the end of the week, he'll be gone. And I know people worry about who's going to be next. Be careful. I know what Poppy was saying, but this is just the start. I think they'll be out. I think there'll be a general election in 26, maybe 27, because this government can't hold what they've done. Doesn't matter who comes in, it's just going to be terrible for them. I really do think that. Anyway, great show, Pops. Ta-da.
Honestly, we've now got to the point where alarm clock Brits don't even name check me on my own show. You said something interesting to me about a threesome during the break.
Yeah, well, we forgot a Prime Minister, didn't we? Of course, David Cameron. David Cameron. I mean, I'm sure it's not him, although, of course, he's had the rumours before. Remember the pig?
Oh,
the
God.
pig?
This is all because
Oxford.
Andrew Loney, who has written this extraordinary book about the fall of the House of York, has intimated over the weekend that inside there will be proof in the files that an ex-British Prime Minister allegedly had a threesome with the vile paedophile Epstein and a lady of the night. We sort of threw out everybody. We talked Blair Brown, we did Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak. I mean, it's extraordinary. But let's go back to what this whole Mandelson scandal is doing to our royal family. Page 8 of the Mail, Poppy. I make no secret of being a royalist, but I must say, pressure grows on King to say sorry over the saga. I was thinking this morning, driving in, that he needs to say something, and I'm beginning to feel that it's rather reminiscent of when the Queen kept quiet when Diana had sadly died in that car crash.
Yeah.
And I understood for a while why she did it. She was protecting her grandsons, but there she was up in Balmoral, and her public, her flock, if you like, demanded a statement. I think the royal family is at a really, really difficult moment in its history. I'm sure William would probably want to come out and say something, but they're going to have to, because, and this is I'm a royalist. What did the Queen think the 12 million was for?
Yeah.
Of course he has no option, Charles, but to have Andrew out of the public limelight, but he's paying for him, and there will be people in this country who go, hold on a second, he's done all of that and you're paying for him to live quietly. And I think for the royal family, because there are numbers of people in this country who will go, we should be past that, we should be a republic, I think it's a really important moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what's the famous royal doctrine? Never complain, never explain. But I think there are limits to that strategy. Now, I do actually think the King has done a very good job at keeping Andrew away. There was that moment where there could have been a kind of bringing him back into public life, which Andrew clearly wanted, and he very much had given him the cold shoulder. So I think in probably their minds, they think, well, we have done as much as we possibly can without hurting Andrew's children, who obviously they don't want to get mixed up in this, to remove him from royal life.
Well, see, Kinsey is on in 15. I want you to just, because the other day I launched into a whole broadside about what sort of woman, Fergie, would take her kids aged 8 and 10 to meet and Kinsey went, Jez, with respect, they were 18 and 20, right? Now, if at 20 years of age, if my mother's going to take me to meet a convicted paedophile, I'm not going. I've got an opinion. So I'm not implicating them, but I'm saying that the whole thing is, if the King addressed the nation and said these disgusting, repulsive rumours, I feel sorry for the victims, I think it would do the monarchy a world. I'd love to know what you think about this morning, peeps. 87222, and also I said peeps, not pops. 0344 499 1000. I think it's one of those moments for the British royal family where they really are under pressure. And then, to add it, front of the Sun newspaper today, Andy leaked envoy docs to Epstein. I mean, honest to God, man, there's going to be pressure for him to be prosecuted as well.
And I think that's completely right. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think this strategy of just moving him from house to house to house... See, he's like downgrading. It's like a strange episode of Move to the Country, where every time the house gets slightly smaller and slightly smaller, really works, because, there are questions about whether or not he's actually committed criminal acts.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was acting on behalf of the country, he was acting on behalf of the British state when he had these trade envoy roles. In the same way that we're talking about Peter Mandelson potentially being prosecuted and his house was raided by the police, there are questions about Andrew.
Said it last week and people thought that I was mad. I think there is a real... I think Mandelson will go to jail.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think there's a real chance for the first time in our history that a member of the royal family will be prosecuted and found guilty. And if that's right in the front of the Sun, great article by Thomas Godfrey, does a great job on the Sun, Thomas Godfrey. And actually, emails to pedopals at envoy docs. I mean, the whole thing. This is just... every day you come in and you go, well, let's try and talk about something else, but it's just everywhere,
It's
isn't
such
it?
a big scandal. I mean, you know, people always say that, oh, it's the biggest scandal. But it is the biggest scandal of my lifetime, I'm sorry, because this is so... What it suggests about the way our country is run, what it suggests about certain people who live within our political elite is so depressing and disturbing that we have to keep talking about it. And I completely agree with you, Jez. Like, I think that they should probably be going through his own files and documents, the police. I mean, Prince Andrew. Not Prince Andrew anymore, just Andrew. But because...
If he was not, I get the feeling, and honestly, if you cut me open in half, I am the biggest royal fan, but I'm telling you, if you took away, and he hasn't got titles, if you took away his privilege, he would be banged to rights, but right now he would be being questioned by the police. That is my opinion, all right? That's how I see it. And his brother, who I have a lot of time for, I saw a picture this morning of 3 years after you did that Newsnight ridiculous interview with the woman, Matlis, or whatever her name is, do you remember when they came to a memorial for the Duke of Edinburgh and the doors opened and frail old Queenie, everybody was sat, Andrew was on her arm. Now, listen, you won't have me ever criticising the Queen, but hold on a minute. You must have known what was going on, love.
Yeah.
And there's all this stuff about she always protected him, and I ain't telling you on air why I have always believed that she's protecting him, because that's not my place. But I would say this, if the King wants to maintain what the monarchy is, because there are detractors, and talks about modernising it, talk to your people, Charles. Talk to your people. Your people need you to talk to them. I genuinely believe that.
I agree with it. And I think if he did that, you know, he would have the country come behind him if he explained. Because I think people got to understand it's a difficult situation. And I think Charles, you know, unlike the late Queen, who obviously it was her son, has no love lost for Andrew. I think he's absolutely furious at Andrew.
Can I throw something else in that I'll get told off by Kinsey? What if he's scared to?
What do you mean?
What if he's scared to? Why has he protected Andrew for so long? Is it because he promised his mother that he would look after him, or is Charles? I'm going to say something to me. Is Charles squeaky clean? Are any of them? Because you just said it. The thing about this scandal is it makes you question almost everything about the fabric of what we were all brought up to believe in. Page 2 of the Sun.
Yeah.
Cops must probe Andy like Mandy. I wish my old man was alive. He'd be drinking this in, man.
The stuff that I find so upsetting about the Andrew stuff is that, you know, there have been people coming out, people who like diplomatic officers and people who were working closely when they were police protection, talking about how outrageous his behaviour was, and this is going back years and years and years. Now, I understand that those people, you know, they're sworn to secrecy, OK? It's not their place to come out and tell people what was going on. But people within the royal family knew about Andrew.
Yep.
They may not have known specifically about Epstein, but they definitely knew about certain proclivities of his. And that's why it's so important that the King draws a line and really puts some distance between them, because he has to at least convince people there is that distance.
And the other thing is, you know, sitting here doing this, one of the things that infuriates me as a Brit and as a dad and a granddad is the child grooming gangs inquiry. The more I read about that, the more I think the establishment, for whatever reason, at whatever level, has covered something up. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. When you look at this and you hear about fingers in pies and Epstein and files and cabinet ministers allegedly selling secrets, the whole thing makes you question. And I'm not like this, but I will say it. How many things are actually covered up by those in a network of power, and why I believe the country's going to change with its green government reform. I just think this country's woken up to. This can't continue. This is morally wrong. Let's get a Pete, good morning.
The more I hear about this Mandelson, Epstein, Andrew, I'm just wondering, right, if this is all about espionage, all about honey traps with these women, getting these men, agents, ministers, government officials into compromising positions with these women so they can blackmail them into handing over state secrets. Begin to think this Epstein may well have been, he was a horrible piece of work, but could he have well been a double agent?
You see, a lot of people say it's conspiratorial. I go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. How did he afford an island? How did he make his money?
Yeah. Or how can you not be conspiratorial with him?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole story stank to high heaven from the very beginning, from when his suicide in the prison cell, which a lot of people have pointed out looked a little bit suspicious in various ways.
Have you heard that story over the weekend? That a new inmate came in on the night that he... there's the video footage. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
Honest to God, you think I've turned into a... It's just every waking moment. I'm obsessed. A new inmate came into the segregation unit and went towards his cell 3 hours before he died.
I mean, well,
if he was a Russian agent, you're telling me the Russians wouldn't have killed him? Is that why America's kept quiet? I've got no idea. The whole thing is literally, to anybody, it's bizarre.
And you're right about the question of his money, because you can understand how he became a millionaire.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was working at Bear Stearns. He had that close relationship with Les Wexner, who was the Victoria's Secret founder. But then there's the question of how do you go from a millionaire to a multi-billionaire when everyone is saying, oh, Epstein wasn't actually involved in those funds. He wasn't actually involved in the managing of that money. It's like, well, where did it come from then? Because you can look in some of the emails that have been released previously in a different tranche of documents with Barclays Bank and JP Morgan, that people are raising concerns about all the money that he is depositing into their accounts. And they're going, where's it coming from? And the high-ups at the bank go, don't worry about it. He's a good client.
Oh, God, honestly, Christian, we're going to end it. It's fascinating, isn't it? 0344 419 1000. Bill in Romsey, good morning. I think Starmer is shaking in his boots about PM's questions this week. I think he might call for a leadership battle better for him now than after the by-election. The election's in May. This is his only chance to hold on to power. What, call their bluff? That's interesting. Paul says, morning, JK and Pops. Pathetic, Jez. Starmer isn't going anywhere. He's too arrogant and narcissistic to quit. He'll give us some word salad and blame everyone else. Andy, a suggestion in Coventry. What about the Pops and Pop show? It has a certain ring to it. You can do one. Sonia, good morning. Starmer has no regard for this country. Rayner has no clue. Mad Miliband will have us thrown into the dark ages with his insane green energy madness, treating us no idea to run a business, let alone a country. If we had an election, it would be devastating, as neither Reform nor the Conservatives will get enough seats, leaving the horrific project of Labour getting in again. Not sure I agree with that. But Neil Harrison from Hull, why don't you become Prime Minister, Jerry? Don't ever, ever, ever call me Jerry. That goes back a long way. It was never the Jerry Kyle show. Just bear with that. Never call me Jerry. Now I'm going to get, aren't I? Morning, Pops and Jerry. Why did I even say that? Hugh Saw, basically saying, morning, Jez, chin up. Think of poor old Captain Starmer today as his creaking ship limps on. The loss of his navigator, Boaty McBoatface, is the final nail in his political coffin. There is nothing left for this awful administration. Mick says, Jez, Pops, what the hell's Rayner doing on TikTok? She'd go to the opening of a car door if it would get her publicity. And also Billy in Fareham, where my train got stuck yesterday. Jez and Pops, here's a prediction to discuss. Starmer clings on, maybe has a reshuffle, but in a last twist he goes to King Charlie and gets a general election before the by-elections in May. Just don't see it. I think there's something, a point at which you would sit there and go, there's no way back.
I know. It's, you know what it reminds me of? The film Downfall, Hitler in the Bunker. It's over now. There's no way to come back from this, you know.
There isn't. And you know, let's go back to what we've always said. The most unpopular Prime Minister, and we've had a few, let's be honest, we've had a few.
No, it's a real achievement.
I mean,
probably
what a
his only
legacy.
achievement in government.
You know. But, I mean, that's a legacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you are... I just think he was always out of his depth, and I think that the sands of time are shifting. Listen, we'll move on to Reform after the next break. We're going to get Kinsey Schofield, the doyen of everything royal, is next from LA. Morning, Liam.
Morning, Jez. Liam in Yorkshire. As much as I'm loving seeing Starmer squeal, like he's made us squeal for the past 18 months, surely it's better the devil you know, because what could follow him in is absolutely terrifying. But who's going to follow him in? Calamity, Mad Ed, Angela Rayner, who cuts her own hair. Oh, God. Roll on 2029. Cheers, mate.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 18 minutes to 7. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talks, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. And you're waking up to the story. I mean, it's in every single newspaper. How long has he got, Keir Starmer? We are officially on resignation watch here at Talk because this man is holed up in number 10, apparently depressed. His Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, fell on his sword over the weekend. And I'm going to repeat this all morning. He said in his leaving bit, in public life, responsibility must be owned when it matters most, not just when it is most convenient. In the circumstances for me, said Morgan McSweeney, the only honourable course is to step aside. So I ask you this morning, if he has to resign over advising Starmer to employ the potential criminal Mandelson, then surely the man that appointed Mandelson can't go on. Labour MPs in every newspaper. We've got Carl Turner later saying his position is untenable. Let's talk royals. This is interesting. Heather Sewell. King Charles should disown his brother Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Sarah Ferguson and cut them off. No money, no cards and no protection, and kick them to the curb. The only problem with that is, I think, a fear amongst the royal family about whether he would go nuclear. A very good morning stateside. I love her. Kinsey Schofield. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. I agree with you. I mean, I do think that Sarah Ferguson specifically has a lot of secrets she could tell that would embarrass King Charles about his past relationship with Princess Diana. And I think that she's a level of desperate she's never quite been before. And we've seen her desperate. Cash for access, the works.
You would know more than me, but I was quite serious about this morning. Second page 2 of the Mail, pressure grows on the King to say sorry over the saga. I think this is probably one of the most worrying moments for the monarchy, a monarchy that you know I absolutely support, Kins. And I drew a parallel with when the Queen was up in Balmoral after Diana's death protecting the kids. And it just grew and grew and grew, and her public were demanding her presence and her voice. I think the same is going to happen, and I think the longer the royal family stay quiet, I think that they will be doing themselves irreparable damage, and I say that as a royalist.
Well, look, I will stress that King Charles has publicly acknowledged the victims. In November 2025, we were surprised. He and Queen Camilla issued a statement expressing profound sympathy for survivors of abuse of all kinds, and that included very pointedly the context around Andrew. That was not accidental. It was a clear shift towards centering victims rather than protecting reputation, which the royal family is notorious for. Queen Camilla has spent years advocating for survivors of violence against women, and that influence showed, you know, in that statement. And additionally, a formal apology does not change the substance of what historically has already been said and was a major moment. Andrew had previously pitched a fit about acknowledging victims in past statements. They'd tried before. Because he was so nasty about it, they'd been removed. This was the King actually really putting his foot down in November. This acknowledgement is on the record, and for many victims, being seen and believed publicly is the meaningful step.
I get that, and you know me, I'm going to preface everything this morning and say I'm a bigger royalist than you, but I believe that might have been said, but I think so much more has come out this morning on the front of the page. Son Andy leaked envoy docs to Epstein. I think the British public will very soon demand a fresh acknowledgement / apology / whatever it is, and I would be very interested as to the dynamic right now between William and Charles, because I could absolutely tell you that I suspect if William was king, he would already have made a statement. And I mean that. And I'm not saying that Charles has got skeletons, or what you said about Duchess of York, I'm sure is right. But to me, it's really at a point where if you want the monarchy to not have more detractors, now you need to speak.
Well, what are you suggesting, that King Charles come out and explain himself? Because I am under the impression, and I'm actually incredibly confident, that the king is finding about this in real time, the same as you and me. Like,
Then
I
say
think
that. Then come out and say that, because, for example, and you said something to me the other day about the kids, which I completely took on board. I never thought I'd say this to you on this show. What did the Queen think the 12 million was for? Right. And I'm, you know me, God, the Queen was like me, look, 70 years, but what does she think the 12 million was for? Did he pull the wool over his mother's eyes? Fine. I just think even if they say we were duped, we only know what you know. This is appalling and abhorrent, and our thoughts are with the victims, which is why I've stripped him, which is why I've moved him. Yes, he's my brother, but his behaviour is completely outrageous. That, to me, is a monarchy connecting with its people.
Well, I mean, those negotiations or those strategies are happening behind the scenes right now as we speak. I think their first step was out of sight, out of mind, and that's why we saw them throw him on a plane at midnight and rush him, away from Windsor, because they didn't want to see him literally on his high horse trotting around Windsor anymore.
Waving to people last week. It's like,
yes,
God, man, get real.
But what I thought was really interesting over the weekend is this story you mentioned. I believe it's in the Telegraph, about him leaking confidential secrets. Andrew, I mean, it's the timing. During that same period, Peter Mandelson was the UK business secretary, and there are allegations that Epstein was being fed market-sensitive UK and EU information from multiple directions, but by Mandelson. There's no evidence that Andrew and Mandelson coordinated with each other, but the fact that sensitive access was flowing to a man who had potentially hostile interests when it comes to the UK. I think that that's incredible information. Context matters because it helps explain how Epstein built that power. We all say to each other, how did he make his money? How did he get, how it's all about this like network that he created, this pyramid he created, but he monetized access to elite networks across politics, royalty, finance, and tech. And in Andrew's case, it directly collides with the rules. Trade envoys are bound by strict confidentiality, and any sharing of sensitive information is not just inappropriate, it's a breach of duty. I mean, I'm wondering if this is actually where Andrew really gets in trouble.
Yeah, well, I would say this, and I keep saying it, you know what I think? I think if he wasn't Andrew Windsor Mountbatten, he'd already have been investigated by the cops, and I can absolutely see that happening for the reasons that you say. You can look at somebody's sordid life, and yes, that's vile and victims, but if, like Mandelson, in any sort of way, and looking at some of these emails, it's just damning. But I don't think there's ever been, we were saying it earlier, Kins, anything like this. I don't think this is going away. And what we're suddenly saying in England is, how much of an establishment cover-up is this Epstein saga? I don't know what they're saying in the States, but so many people, you just nailed it. Where did he get his money from? You know, he went from a millionaire to a multi-billionaire. There are conspiracy theorists over here that he was nothing more than being financed by the Russians, and he pulled in princes and dukes and prime ministers and presidents, and wow.
And keep in mind, like, we were joking the last time we spoke about how he couldn't spell to save his life. And this, he was a teacher that was fired from school because he wasn't doing his job properly. It doesn't make sense. Like, he attracted these people through vices, through sin, and it was like a giant pyramid scheme. But yeah, I just think that Andrew has really dug himself into a hole here beyond anything that the king could have ever imagined. And I know people have criticisms about King Charles, but he had an affair with one woman. He had an affair with one woman who he married, who he is still happily married to, who he should have married to begin with. Yep. But otherwise, I think he's a pretty great human being.
No, I've always been supportive, but I think there are defining moments in your rule. And I think that one of the defining moments for the Queen, genuinely, there were two. The first was when that Welsh village was sunk by the landslide, and she didn't go, and she freely admitted for years she sent the Duke of Edinburgh. She should have gone. The other was in her belief that she was staying in Balmoral, and my old man was there to look after the boys, right? The truth is, her public needed her to speak, and I get the distinct feeling that I've never had time for the Republican cause. I think the royal family is an extraordinary thing that creates money that people can't even imagine. But this whole desire, Kins, to modernise the royal family and get level and get even with where we're at, right, needs to understand that this moment now, you know, he needs to speak. Here's a question for you. Do you think he'll be speaking to Starmer about Epstein at their weekly meetings, the King and the Prime Minister? It's a thought.
I think that that has to be a topic of conversation, no matter how uncomfortable it is. It absolutely has to be a topic of conversation.
It's just the whole thing. And we Poppy's here as well. We just sit here and think, how many more layers are there to this? How many more moments are we going to wake up to stories that you just think, secret sex, just so much. I mean, you know, last week we had Prince Andrew, Epstein and a threesome. Over the weekend there are reports from Andrew Loney that an ex-Prime Minister, Epstein, and a call girl had a threesome. So we're all sat here trying to work out it is. It's unbelievable. Seriously.
Well, and also keep in mind, Andrew Loney has asked the government for flight records of Prince Andrew's, for his schedules, and they're refusing to give them to him. Imagine if we had that information, the dots we could connect, the Tetris we could put together, the puzzle we could piece together. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and until Andrew Loney gets that information, I think that we're going to want it even more. I think we're going to fight for it at this point. All of us, we're going to rise.
I like seeing you every morning. It puts a spring in my step and my hat at a jaunty angle. Kinsey, thank you so much. It's not going anywhere, this story. We love her. Kinsey Schofield, live and exclusive. The host, of course, of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. 6 minutes to 7. Talk breakfast. Morning, Wayne.
Morning, Jezza. Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham. Let's hope Ed Millipede don't get the top job. We'll be riding round on penny farthings next week. Keep up the good work, mates.
There's no way that the Prime Minister should have appointed Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to Washington, given the official briefing that he'd been given. But he went ahead and did it anyway. I don't think we can trust his judgment ever again. And I think the Labour Party is waking up to the fact that it can't trust his judgment ever again.
Is it his judgment or is it Morgan McSweeney's judgment? And should Morgan McSweeney go?
And Morgan McSweeney, who's Peter Mandelson's protégé, very obviously gave the Prime Minister bad advice. But ultimately, responsibility rests with the Prime Minister.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is true. It is absolutely true. People listen to Talk longer than any other speech radio station in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much. I know you're tuning in for Poppy. Morning, Pops. Brilliant. Phil in Coventry. I was a royalist, not anymore. Sick and tired of paying for all and sundry to drain the swamp from top to bottom. Royals, politicians, Home Office, the councils, everyone is on the take, out for themselves. I think we're corrupt. I think this is really important. David Todd says King Charles should say sorry to the UK people for approving this bloody awful Labour Party in the first place. Very quickly, Sean on Starmer, go.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean in Leicester. Oh my God, what a show already. And it is only nearly 20 to 7. Epstein, Charles, Starmer. Honestly, you couldn't make it up, the stuff that's going on in this country at the moment. Anyway, Keep it going, mate. I'll be shouting at the radio all the way down to High Wycombe from Leicester today. Have a good show, everybody.
Thank you, Sean. Right, Poppy, very quickly. Who's back on Wednesday by popular demand? Page 8, Nigel Farage. I'm ready for number 10 in 2026. Nigel Farage will today in Birmingham at a rally fire the opening shots for the next general election by revealing his plans to become PM and potentially who might do what in government.
Yeah, I mean, this is extraordinary because I know you've been saying, and Farage himself has been saying for a while, I might be in number 10 sooner than people think, that there might be a reform government sooner than people think. And I was always a little bit sceptical of that because I thought, surely this government can't collapse so quickly. They've got this massive majority, Reform's still a new party, they've got so far to climb. I actually buy it. I still think 2027 is more likely, but I could see it happening this year. If Starmer falls, if he has to go, whether he's thrown out or he resigns, and we'll get maybe Rayner, who's just had her hair done, or Ed Miliband, Red Ed, or some other absolute chancellor of the Labour Party, and they'll be out within a couple of months as well because they'll be just as incompetent, they are going to have to do a general election. And we all know who will win if there is a general election that's called tomorrow.
Total transparency. I'm going to Birmingham after this show to host the Reform Rally as a presenter. Robert Jenrick on the show later on, tipped to be Farage's shadow chancellor, but Nigel won't tell anybody what's going on. That's the way Nigel runs Reform. Be really interesting, though. All those people who went, have you got enough experience? Who's there? Who's what? Whatever. It'll be really, really interesting. We'll get your opinions on that as well. Where did that hour go?
I know,
every time I spend an hour with you, it goes so quickly.
When you're talking about Keir Starmer, time just passes so quickly.
Does he go? Just quickly
I think
to
so.
Starmer?
Yeah. Lame duck. He's done. He's done. I'm going to say after May.
Okay.
You were saying before.
Does Mandelson go to prison?
I hope so.
Brilliant. Does Andrew get prosecuted?
Well, that's the real question. Yeah. That's the real question. And I don't want to say yes or no on that one, but I think probably he should.
The amazing Poppy Coburn. You love her, we did too. She's back. Dear Poppy and your mate Jezza. She's back Wednesday morning for the paper review. Heading towards the news at 7. It's all about Starmer. We are on resignation watch here on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk. The news at 7 and Isabel Oakeshott on the way next.
We reject! Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders! We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and it is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where we need to. Because for our security, our economy and our climate.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning. Welcome back. Just after 7 o'clock, you're with Talk's the home of common sense, and it's the home of Alarm Clock Brits. And thank you for making this the speech radio station that people listen to longer than anywhere else, because it's about you. It's about what you want to talk about, the news through your eyes. You can be on between now and 10 o'clock throughout the day, in fact, 0344 499 1000. Those voice notes or calls to Christian, you can text 87222. Just start your message with the word talk. You wake up, there's one story in town. It's called Epstein. We've got Labour MPs in absolute open revolt. The front page, let me stress the importance of this. A Prime Minister, right, with the biggest post-war in modern history. He should be as safe as anything. Front page of the Mail. So how long can Starmer cling on? Over the weekend, of course, his chief of staff, main protagonist, the legend that wasn't Morgan McSweeney, fell on his sword. Now, Starmer, presumably, has asked him to do that. But let's just go back, if we can, to 2010. Because Keir Starmer's always said, I never turn on my staff.
Hear me out. I had 8,000 staff for 5 years as the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I acted, I hope, in the right way with them, which is when they had victories, I celebrated on their behalf. I picked up awards on their behalves. And when they made mistakes, I carried the can. I never turn on my staff, and you should never turn on your staff.
But you did at the weekend, because McSweeney's gone then. Another lie. Interestingly, let me read this to you as well. Morgan McSweeney's resignation lines. In public life, he says, responsibility must be owned when it matters most, not just when it is most convenient. In the circumstances, the only honourable course for me is to step aside. I have always believed there are moments when you must accept your responsibility and step aside for the bigger cause. So the question this morning on Talk Breakfast is simply this. If McSweeney had to resign because he gave Starmer this dodgy advice to promote Mandelson, doesn't Starmer have to go for actually making the decision to employ a bloke with the close links that he knew he had with Epstein? Honestly, it's extraordinary. Poppy Coburn from The Telegraph telling us just now he's holed up in number 10 Downing Street, apparently severely depressed. He was going to address the nation. That's been cancelled. We really are on resignation watch, and all the vultures are circling. Lammy, God, he says, I warned him over Mandelson. He doesn't actually sound like that. I don't know why I did that. MPs are lending staff to work on Wes Streeting's leadership campaign, and our Ange has had a makeover. And for all the people who are texting Christian about the wash, cut and blow dry that she's having, just very good. 87222. Lots of people are saying, what's the alternative? That's even worse, isn't it? Let's say morning to Dan. Hello, Dan.
Morning, Jezza. It's Dan from Kent. While this rudderless government runs around in chaos, the rest of us are sat here on some budget airline watching the cabin crew fight over who gets the captain's hat. We still have our problems like the economy and legal immigration. That's just been put on the back burner. That won't be sorted. This will drag on for months, this Epstein problem. The Labour are in chaos. Whoever they appoint will just be a complete failure. We just need a general election. It's absolutely awful. Makes me so angry.
Do you know what's interesting about the Alarm Clock Brits, who I love, right? Every single person sounds depressed. And why wouldn't you sound depressed? Because this country is essentially on its arse. We say a very good morning to a woman who always puts a spring in my step and my hat at a jaunty angle, the legend that is Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I bumped into somebody yesterday here in the Middle East who recognised me out of the blue. And I can tell you, she's a British lady who's been living in the Middle East for 20 years. And she bounded up to me, and I can tell you she was virtually in tears about the state of the UK. There are so many people all over the world who are watching what is going on with our wonderful country. And even if they are separated from our country by geography, they care deeply and they are so upset by the shambles that we are in and the decline of our country. These are people who love their country. Just because they live overseas for a period doesn't mean they have any less love for their country. And I was really taken by that. You know, I felt quite, it was almost quite awkward because she was basically crying as she met me. And I just sort of said, it is emotional, isn't it? You know, we can look at this as a political story, but it is also an emotional story for so many millions of us, because we do feel deeply patriotic and we want our country to be as great as it can be. And it is just words that I don't want to use on a morning programme. It is just, let me just call it a shambles.
Very impressive. It's really interesting. We'll strip it down, but there's something more to it as well. I love your take on this. And I'm not conspiratorial, but you can't help be conspiratorial, because I was harking back this morning to the Rotherham grooming gangs and how this government and past governments, let's just nail this, have refused to acknowledge the plight of those poor girls and have an inquiry. When you look at Epstein and you look at Mandelson and you look at dodgy emails and you look at Andrew and trade done by emails, and you think about the Crown Princess of Denmark wrote an email to Epstein saying, I want to have your babies, and Bill Gates, one of the most successful people, allegedly caught an STD. I just bring myself to this, which is how much, and I've never been like this, Isabel, how much of our country is corrupt? How much of the establishment have covered up loads of shambles, your word, for so long? I think the British people are sort of open-mouthed and slash completely depressed about what actually the truth of our country is.
I agree with you. You know, someone messaged me yesterday and said, someone who's not in the political world, so is it the case that all the conspiracy theories are true then? And I thought, well, you know, kind of quite a lot of them seem to be at this point. You know, there is this corrupt cabal that moves in very elite circles and looks after each other. And they abuse the institutions, our proud institutions, to that end, whether that's the police or whether that's the criminal justice system or whether that's the media, whatever it may be. But let's just sort of zoom in for a minute on the politics of this. Keir Starmer may very well resign in the next few days. If I had to put money on it, if I really had to, I would say he will resign this week. It feels to me that when you've got senior figures coming out, you know, sticking in the knife, you're saying that the PM must take responsibility. You know, they're not saying it quite so directly, but it's very clear that the wagons are circling. Look at Ange in the hairdresser. You know, that isn't
on TikTok.
Ridiculous thing. It is also so obvious that she is on manoeuvres. I don't think this is survivable for Keir Starmer. I can see the game they're playing, okay? This is what the allies of Keir Starmer are saying now. They are saying, oh, we've got to keep him in position, because if he goes, there will be a crisis in the bond markets. These financial markets, they're a kind of a daily assessment on the stability of the UK. And they're basically saying these markets will blow up if Keir Starmer resigns. And they might not actually be wrong about that. There are all sorts of financial things that could happen if the markets take fright at, for example, a power vacuum at a David Lammy interim premiership. Exactly that. The markets may take a massive, terrified intake of breath.
Surely to jump in there, that's just an excuse by his allies. Prime ministers have been ousted before and the bond markets will recover. That's just them throwing what they've got left at this, isn't it? I mean,
well, precisely. That's the argument they're using.
Yeah.
They're also sort of saying, please, can we just wait until this report comes out from the Intelligence and Security Committee? That's going to take weeks. So that's otherwise known as playing for time. And finally, the most lame argument that I've seen and heard in the last 24 hours is that Keir Starmer can't resign now because of the international situation, because of Ukraine, because of Iran, because of, probably Chagos as well. I mean, come on, guys. There's always wars everywhere, so that's not going to fly. I don't think he can last, even a matter of days.
I'm with you. I mean, the Mail's all over it. Labour MPs tell Keir his position is untenable. The PM's human shield has gone. Great article by Dan Hodges, page 5 of the Mail. He'll be on as well on the show. Ministers tell me it's just a matter of time before he goes too. Can I bring you to Morgan McSweeney's resignation letter, which I thought was really poignant, right? I've always believed there are moments when you must accept your responsibility and step aside for the bigger cause. And the question I put this morning was, well, if the man who gave you the advice says it was wrong and the bigger cause, the same surely applies to his boss. I mean, Poppy says he's inside 10 Downing Street, holed up, depressed and doesn't know what to do. Resign, man. We're on resignation watch. I'm totally with you. I don't think he lasts. I don't see how he lasts.
It is not possible, and even if it were possible, the Labour MPs are not stupid enough to imagine that this is anything other than devastating for the party's reputation.
Yeah.
You know, the longer Keir Starmer goes on, the more this story just goes on and on. It gets more and more poisonous by the day, and it's incredibly corrosive. You know, Labour's poll ratings are already absolutely down the pan, you know, under 20%, which for a party with a huge majority is absolutely pathetic and truly alarming for Labour MPs. And I predict that they will go down several points more this week, whether or not Keir Starmer resigns. But if he chooses to hold on for a number of weeks, I think that the party will be in real trouble, and there's not many weeks to go now before those May elections.
In your experience, and you've got so much experience politically from a journalistic point of view, did you? I mean, we can all sit here and go, look, Labour will bankrupt the country. Have they got a plan? Blah, blah, blah. But we were so, all of us, fed up with the lies, the lack of seeing through anything the Tories did. I mean, at the end, 14 years, nobody was listening to the Tory party. Don't care what anybody says, right? They've achieved this in 18 months. You cannot tell me that you thought it would be this bad. This is, I mean, the Epstein thing is I think, the biggest political story for 100 years. I think it's bigger than Profumo as it goes. But you're looking on screen at a man who has the biggest post-war majority, and we can absolutely tell you he's toast. It's now, or at some point, he's going to go. 18 months in from winning that election, Isabel.
It is the most spectacular implosion of any administration that I have ever seen, or in modern British political history. You know, this, I think all of us who weren't on the side of Labour's politics nonetheless thought, well, you know, it'll be pretty horrible left-leaning, you know, socialism dressed up as something slightly less awful than socialism, and we'll sort of muddle along, and it'll be a bit like the years of under Gordon Brown. And nothing could be further from the truth. It has been one catastrophe after another, starting with those summer riots and the abysmal, appalling, reprehensible way Keir Starmer dealt with those, trying to characterise people who took to the streets peacefully as all being far-right thugs in the wake of the Southport killing. That, for me, was the start.
Shall I tell you what was the moment that I thought? Is when the very good people of Epping, the mothers, decided to protect their daughters, the pink ladies, and go out and say, we don't want a migrant sex offender in a hotel next to us. And our own government, our own Prime Minister, took the local council, who I salute, who won the closure of that hotel, took that hotel and that council back to court and won, and they were basically telling the British people, you know what? Migrants are more important. Illegal migrants are more important than you. That, for me, was the lowest point, and the puberty blockers while we're at it.
Look, there have been so many low points, and it's hard to actually list them, isn't it? And I genuinely feel quite physically sick talking about what's happened. I think, like so many up and down the country, I'm genuinely aghast and disbelieving about how spectacularly this bunch of utter clowns, and some of them are not just clowns, some of them, in my view, are treacherous. And I say about Keir Starmer, about Lord Hermer, about everybody that has been involved in the truly unforgivable sell-off of the Chagos Islands.
Yep.
We're all in disbelief at how bad this could have got. And the terrifying thing is, we may very well have another 3 years of this to go.
Can't see it happening. There's a couple of emails, actually, which is saying, Steve, if Starmer is in any way an honourable man, he has to genuinely think about calling an election rather than ceding power to others that cannot be trusted in his party. Now, we haven't thought about that. If you're cornered and there's no way out, I don't suspect, by the way, he gives a toss about the country, because I don't think he's shown that he does. But out of sheer spite, you lot aren't having this, you've ousted me, I'm calling a general election. That's not out of the realms of possibility either.
No, I have certainly thought about that, and it is within his gift to do that. I mean, I remember it being threatened, I think, probably by both Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. You know, it is what cornered premiers do. It's almost the last sort of, you know, it's the kamikaze thing, isn't it? And it could be something that he uses to MPs, to Labour MPs, to say, look, if you do this, I'm going to call an election. And of course, they don't want that, because where the polls are at right now, the most of them are going to be losing their seats. So I'm not with Poppy. I heard her earlier. I don't think there's, I think the chances of an election are very low. Okay. I put it at sort of 5%, possibly 10% at most. We can all dream, we can all hope that that happens. But I think these are the desperate last thrashings of a beast that knows he's about to go to the slaughter.
Here's a very quick question, and I want to talk about reform quickly. I know you're busy. There is talk that there could be like a caretaker interim leader. This is a great question. There are people, naturally, the length and breadth of this country, who open-mouthed are saying, David Lammy could be the interim Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, right? Here's a question, Isabel, you'd know. Damon in Wigan. Does an interim who serves for a matter of weeks also end up getting £165,000 a year golden handshake pension for the rest of their life, as other ex-Prime Ministers do? Please tell me not.
Wow, that is actually a question to which I don't know the answer. I mean, there have been a few interim prime ministers. You remember when Dominic Raab had to kind of unofficially take over when Boris Johnson was very, very ill with COVID? I suspect the answer to that is no, because they've not been appointed prime minister. It is an acting job. It could happen for brief periods if a prime minister is out of action. You'd get into all sorts of weird technicalities, wouldn't you, about when is a prime minister really fully not a prime minister and so on. So I don't think that would be the case. But by the way, it was me that brought you last week, and I think it was probably you and I that was talking about it, the horrible spectre of David Lammy being prepared to take over. I think you'll recall I mentioned it. I said that I understood that those contingency plans were already underway as early as the middle of last week.
Very quickly, I'm going to go to Robert Jenrick in a tick from you, Isabel. Farage, page 8 of The Sun, I'm ready for number 10 in 2026. There's a big rally hosted by me later today in Birmingham for transparency. There are rumours that Nigel Farage might well be announcing plans for a shadow cabinet. Thoughts, quickly?
Well, I would guide against that, actually. Nigel, of course, is quite rightly, it's up to him what he announces when, and he's not always the most predictable, and that's part of his genius. But I do not believe that today is the day that any kind of shadow cabinet announcements are going to be announced. Now, just a little caveat, I could be wrong about that, but that is not my informed expectation at this point.
I agree with you. I'm bringing a few of them out on stage, introducing them, and that's it. But people are right in that. Isabel, I like every morning because I get to see you, and there's no doubt my audience love you. My regards. Thank you for everything, Izzy. We'll speak to you later. Thank you very much indeed. Very quickly, Steve, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. This is Stephen Hartz. Yes, of course, prime ministers have been ousted before, but never before has there been the prospect of a prime minister being ousted and then replaced by a communist. That's what we're looking at now. That's why Labour MPs want Starmer out, because they're far left, hard left lunatics, and they want a leader in their own image. The markets well, will not just panic, they'll collapse. The pound will collapse. Be careful what you wish for. If Starmer goes and doesn't call a general election, Britain will be plunged into a very deep, dark recession. Try and have a good day after that cheery message, mate. See you later.
Yeah, how can I? And there's the irony, isn't there, right? This appalling lame duck, least popular Prime Minister in history. There are many people saying, understandably, he might be horrendous, but the alternative is even worse. Stephen Selly, Isabel, you must be very naive if you think this is a new thing. And by that I mean the people in power or people with plenty of money get away with whatever they want. I saw this in the 1990s when I was a Met police officer, Dale Peacock, Jez. Isabel is absolutely right. And as soon as this Mandelson stuff started coming out, I said, that Starmer would resign on Friday the 13th. We are on resignation watch. Will it be this Friday? This is Talk Breakfast, and we'll go live to London and say a very good morning to Robert Jenrick, who, of course, is now a Reform candidate. Morning, Bobby J. How are you?
Very good. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. Warmer than you, and you've got no coat on. You're showing yourself to be a man of the people. Have you ever in your life... Did you ever think that we would be in a position where the entire Labour Party says, so how long can Starmer cling on? This man had the biggest majority in post-war British politics. He's a lame duck, isn't he, Robert Jenrick?
Yeah, he is. Look, this is a government that is collapsing before our very eyes. It's in open revolt against the Prime Minister, and presumably he's only got a short while left in office. And then what's going to happen? There'll be a long, protracted, messy, chaotic Labour leadership contest, and absolutely nothing is going to get done in government for months and months and months. And who is the big loser in this? Well, it's the British people, isn't it? Because everyone watching and listening to your programme this morning who's worried about their wages going nowhere, their bills going up, crime, their high streets being hollowed out, immigration continuing to be out of control, will be listening to this and thinking, what on earth is going on? Why is no one focused on the actual problems that the country is facing instead of turning in on themselves once again, just like the last Conservative government did, frankly, when Boris and Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak's governments fell apart in short succession? Why can we not just have some stability and a government that's actually going to get on and fix things in the country?
It's a really interesting point somebody just made, that Starmer is naturally cornered. They think they saw him, his hands shaking on Wednesday. McSweeney sold down the line. So I'll ask you about that quickly. Morgan McSweeney, in public life, he said, responsibility must be owned when it matters most, not just when it is most convenient. In the circumstances, the only honourable course for me is to step aside. But my question to you, Rob, is if McSweeney has to resign because he advised Starmer to appoint the liar that's Peter Mandelson, doesn't the man who took that advice show terrible judgment and does need to... I just don't think there's any way for him to go. No, he has to go. Has to go.
Yeah, well, look, you're right. It's a completely mad situation. The guy who gave the advice has to resign, but the guy who took the decision doesn't. He gets to stay as our Prime Minister. People listening to this will think that's completely mad. Obviously, Starmer is admitting that he made the most terrible error of judgment in appointing a serially corrupt, depraved liar as our ambassador in Washington, be sacking the bloke who sent him some advice rather than questioning himself as the guy who took the decision. But actually, you know what? I've just been in my constituency in Nottinghamshire all weekend, and most people don't really care about Peter Mandelson. They always knew he was a bad man. They can't believe he ended up as our ambassador in Washington. But what they really care about are all the challenges facing the country in their own lives. And they're looking at this complete mess in Westminster, a Labour government that is now just basically fallen apart, and thinking, why can't we just have someone and a government that's going to actually focus on the real challenges facing the country? And that is why myself, Nigel Farage, Reform are meeting in Birmingham today to set out how we are going to step up now and begin to prepare for government, so that if there is an early general election, which I think is looking increasingly likely now, we're ready to actually serve the country with a strong set of candidates, people of stature and credibility from outside of the main political parties, wherever possible, who can really give something back to public life and to the country, get serious, credible policies so that you can be confident that we can run the country in a way which, frankly, it hasn't been run in recent years under either Conservatives or Labour. and a top team of people who can grip things in a way that this shower just haven't done in recent years.
And I think you're right. I think when you're in the media and when you're in politics, you can get bogged down. We sit here and we go, you know, will he trade in a sulky way anybody taking his crown by calling an election? I guess what parties like the Greens, straight face, and Reform have to do is they have to argue with the British people this is what we should do rather than carp from the sidelines. Just very quickly, you've been in politics long enough. We've talked about how the vultures are circling. Lammy, we've seen Rayner on the front page of the Mail having a makeover. MPs are lending staff to work on Wes Streeting's leadership campaign. We'll talk Reform, but if he does go, who's your money on?
Oh, look, I don't know. Well, let's take those in turn. Calamity Lammy, I mean, seriously, does anyone believe that he could be Prime Minister of our country? Angela Rayner, who is still under investigation from HMRC for failing to pay her taxes. And then you've got Wes Streeting, who supposedly is the grown-up, but he was the bloke who organised Peter Mandelson's stag do and is in this up to his neck. So it's a group of completely terrible candidates. None of these people, frankly, are capable of arresting the decline that the country is in. What is actually going to happen now is there's going to be a slow death of the Keir Starmer administration, where he limps on for days or weeks or months, all the while the British public miss out a long, painful and messy Labour leadership contest, and then we'll have a new Prime Minister who is not capable of fixing the problems that the country faces. And there'll just be lost months and years before we tip into a general election.
People laughed at Nigel Farage.
And Reform have to focus on now is actually being ready so that the public can have faith that this is not going to happen again. We've had this succession of failed governments under Boris, Liz, Rishi, Starmer, whoever comes next, Angela Rayner. We mustn't let this happen again, because the country just can't put up with this for years and years to come.
Page 8, Farage, I'm ready for number 10 in 2026. Nigel has said for a long time he didn't think this government would last. You talk about we're going to step up. We're going to talk today in Birmingham about what makes us. Some of the papers reporting, you'd have to answer this, that Nigel Farage is going to surprise you all and announce who's going to work in what sphere in terms of some sort of idea of shadow cabinet. Any news on that, Bobby J?
I don't know. It's ultimately Nigel's decision, and he's going to be setting it out very soon. But he's certainly going to say that he's going to be opening the selection of parliamentary candidates, because we now want to find people of real stature to come forward and to serve as members of Parliament. He's going to be saying in the coming days he will set out that top team. And he wants it to be people, some who will have experience, who have come from other political parties, but a lot will come from the outside world, which frankly is more important, because people are sick of just the same old names and faces. They want people who run businesses, veterans, doctors, nurses, people who've run prisons and hospitals well, people with real experience of the world to come forward and run government departments. And then we will be setting out serious, credible policies on immigration and crime, but also on the economy and public services, because we've got to fix this country now and turn it around. That people want to see answers to the problems, not just more failure like we've seen from successive governments.
You know I have a job to do, and you'll be delighted to know that it'll be me interviewing all 8 of you later in Birmingham, you lucky man. What job do you want?
Be kind.
Yeah. Oh, well, if you answer this. There are rumours that you will be Nigel Farage's shadow chancellor. Other people are saying, with your experience from the Home Office, Home Secretary, you described it just then as people from other political parties. If you were offered either of those roles, shadow Home Secretary, shadow chancellor, would you be happy to accept that?
Well, of course I'd be delighted to do whatever I can to help Nigel. I chose to walk away from the Conservative Party because I didn't feel it had changed. I didn't believe that it was capable of learning it from its mistakes and fixing the country, and to get on board something which I think is incredibly exciting, which is a movement to fix the country. And I will do whatever I can to help Nigel, who I think would be a great Prime Minister, frankly, somebody who has got conviction, who has been consistently right on the big issues facing the country and stands in total contrast to Keir Starmer. People want a strong leader at a moment like this, and that's what they would get from Nigel Farage, and if I can help him in any way, I certainly will do.
Just final question, what's impressed you most about reform since you defected from the Tories, Robert?
There's a genuine sense of energy and momentum behind it. You know, when you see the old parties, these are dying organisations. You know, they struggle to get a couple of dozen people to come to a meeting. Reform gets thousands of people to come to its rallies and events, as you'll see later today in Birmingham, and people from all walks of life. The event we held in Nottinghamshire a couple of weeks ago that I went to had farmers, small business people, pensioners, had tradesmen, you know, arriving in their white vans after a long day on a shift on a building site in Doncaster and Sheffield, coming to this because what united everybody in that room was that they saw a great country with so much promise, but in a real mess, and they wanted to do something different and to have a government that could come in and actually fix the challenges that face the country, and that is genuinely very exciting and new, and I'm pleased to be a part of it now.
Just quickly, so we're meeting later on stage in Birmingham. Are you flying in your private jet or going on the train?
I'm catching the train.
Oh, I'm going in a helicopter.
Are you going by? You're going by helicopter?
Yes, of course I am. Finally, do I get a commitment? Are you doing Ring Rob this week?
Oh, I don't know. I'd like to say yes, but
Good
I
man.
don't know. It depends how nice you are. Depends how nice you are to me later on in Birmingham.
Oh, great. Jenrick's now trading with me. Brilliant. Listen, Robert Jenrick, thank you so much indeed. Appreciate your time this morning. Live from College Green, talking about the news that Nigel Farage, page 8 of The Sun, I am ready for number 10 in 2026. Later on in Birmingham, total transparency. Yours truly running. There'll be thousands of people there. I'm going to be talking to every single elected and defected MP, all 8 of them. I'm trying to come up with a phrase. It was magnificent 7. What do I say for 8? Your suggestions would be great. Nigel Farage will be on stage as well, talking about his plans going forward, as Reform say, with all this drama about will Starmer survive. It's in every single newspaper. Labour MPs are turning on him. The ministers are turning on him. We're on resignation watch. Reform are saying, we're trying to do what's right by the British people, and we'll put forward how we would govern differently. Talk Breakfast is on. It's 25 to 8. We're back in 3.
Should we even be looking towards Starmer? Who is actually running the country? It actually opens this Pandora's box of who is in charge, because it doesn't actually seem like Keir Starmer, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, Mr. I'm a lawyer, I'm going to tick every box and look at everything, is actually running it. So I do wonder, who are the powers that be at the Labour Party? The Spectator wrote a great article about it all, about the people who are actually pulling the strings, and it's not Keir Starmer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 25 minutes to 8 o'clock. Never have a biscuit 15 seconds before you come back on air, because the bits just won't go. Welcome back. It's the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk. Can I say thank you again? Officially last week we found out For this radio station, people listen to talk longer than any other speech-based radio station in the UK. That's a genuine comment. That's not massage. That's not made up, OK? That's an absolute comment, and we thank you so much indeed for that. Keep telling your friends, because this is where it's at. The home of alarm clock Brits, the home of working-class people who look at what's going on and go, what the hell? I have to just take a couple of seconds here. My poor son Ollie off school again today. Not well, little man. Hope you feel better. The little minx that is Iris up at 5:30 running amok. And Grandad, the lazy bugger, is sat in my lounge watching right now. Come on, mate, get on with your day. My garden needs doing. I'm jesting. 0344 419 1000. Text to 87222. Morning, Jan.
Hi, Jeremy. I think Starmer must resign. He must resign in the next few days. He could also say that he will stay until after the May elections so that no new Prime Minister has that on their heads. In fact, he might actually pick up, Labour might actually pick up a few votes if people and voters know that he's on his way out. You never know. Jan from Newcastle.
Why, yay, man. Can do the tune. 22 minutes to 8 o'clock. We'll go live back to London to the chairman of the Conservative Party, Kevin Hollinrake. A very good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. I'm actually in North Yorkshire, glorious North Yorkshire.
Brilliant. Hold on a second. If you told me he was in North Yorkshire, I wouldn't have said he was in London and looked like an idiot. Thanks very much. Yeah, I was going to say, where's the hat and coat? Have you come inside? Kevin, welcome. I'm going to start slightly differently. I guess the Tory party, as you're in rebuild mode, and the message, if you look at Kemi's messaging, is starting to gain traction. I think we can all acknowledge that. You don't really want a general election right now, do you? You'd like this man to limp on a bit whilst you continue to gain ground. Would that be a fair comment?
Well, the thing we're really interested in, the reason you come into politics in the first place, Jeremy, is to help the country succeed. So we do whatever we need to do to make sure that happens. And the worst thing for this country right now is having Keir Starmer as its leader. He's clearly inept, he's weak, he lacks backbone, constantly U-turns, and he blames everybody else for his failures. That's where we are. So if there's general election, bring it on, we'll fight it. We've got literally nearly 1,000 people applied to be on candidates lists. We've got a good team of people to fight it. We've got a great leader in Kemi, proper leader, proper backbone. So bring it on if that's the case. I don't think that will happen. I think businesses particularly and people looking for jobs must be pretty anxious right now. So we don't want to kind of set any hairs running unnecessarily. But I think it's fair to say there'll be a change of leader. I don't necessarily think that'll bring about a general election right now.
But what do you say to the people who would argue, and we saw this under Boris, the interesting thing for me is, and I said this to you before, that the British people, the silent majority, seemingly have woken up and realised that their voice can be heard. There will be a clamour if a man who we hear, I mean, we are on resignation watch, and that's not an over-exaggeration. We hear he's holed up in number 10, he's cancelled his speech to the nation, his number one aide has gone. We hear much, but I would say this. Anybody that takes that role, Calamity Lammy, please, I'm going to have to leave the studio and be sick somewhere. Rayner is having a makeover. Wes Streeting is up to his neck in it. We just heard he organised Mandelson's stag do. And don't get me on puberty blockers. You look at the rest of that front bench and you think, geez, there's no experience. I think the country, Kevin, would demand a general election if one of these incompetent people got to have their hand on the most important lever of power in the United Kingdom, don't you?
Well, it's not very promising, I agree. There's no good options, I think, of all the people you listed. So as a result, I think it will be a few weeks before Keir Starmer decides to step down, but he will. He's fatally wounded. So people will be getting their kind of their affairs in order in order to run at it. If there's a general election, as you know, Jeremy, you elect a party to govern. You don't elect an individual. So whether Labour decide to do the decent thing and say, well, OK, we haven't got a mandate for this and we'll go to the country is one thing. You could easily argue, of course, if I was running a business right now, as I was looking for a job right now, would I be really keen to see a general election and some of the uncertainty that would ensue? I'm not sure I would. If there is, we'll fight it. We'll fight it with every bone of our body. You know, we are an organised party. We have a good machine behind us. We have a good leader. We have a good team. So we're not afraid of that at all. But I say the decisions we should take, and indeed the decisions the government should take, should be in the national interest. The reality, it is the national interest, I think, for this Prime Minister to leave office.
Nigel Farage in The Sun today saying he is ready to govern. The opinion polls, I think the last 200 have shown him leading. There has been, though, traction for Kemi, and some of her performances, I think quite rightly, in the House of Commons. She skewered Starmer last week when he went, well, yeah, I did know. Do you, as the chairman of the Tory party, and I know, you know, you're going to say, but we know each other well enough, do you sense a shift? Do you sense that certain older Tory voters are going, yeah? Or do you fear, as many Tories have told me on this show, that however good Kemi Badenoch is, that she might just turn out to be a bit like William Hague, right person at the wrong time, because the British public will punish you at the next election because they won't quite have, I don't know how to put this, made you suffer enough for 14 years of what they perceive. Because we know last time, and listen, you were one of the survivors, but we know last time, I think Rishi Sunak could have offered everybody a £50,000 payment and they still wouldn't have voted for him. They'd stop listening. Do you think that 5 years is enough time to get the people's ears open again, is what I'm trying to say?
Well, yes, I do, in short. Don't get me wrong, we made our mistakes and we paid for them heavily in July of 2024. But one thing I'd say about all this, everything looks easy from the outside. Stood on the sidelines, governing looks easy. But the reality is, Jeremy, and you keep a close eye on these things, it's not easy to govern. There are problems that knock you off track. And but I do think we've got the best leader in politics. She's a more authentic person. She's not been in one of these kind of journeys we talk about. She's always been the same person. She's now the highest rated leader amongst the main protagonists. If you compare with Starmer and Farage, we're the most trusted on the economy again, according to the public, and most trusted by business again. And I think there will be critical success factors when it comes to the next general election. So I think we can win back trust. We are seeing that, as you say, as you acknowledge, from people who've drifted off to reform, and indeed some people who didn't vote at all, or perhaps voted some of the other parties. So they are coming back to us. We've got lots more work to do, and we're determined to do that work. But critically, this country needs good leadership, good, strong leadership, a strong team, a good plan. We have all those things in the Conservative Party.
Kevin, I really appreciate it, and I've said since I started this show, we do want all sides, and the Tory party consistently put people up, and we appreciate it. You'll be interested to know that despite asking every day, Labour won't come anywhere near a radio station that has people listening longer than anybody else in terms of speech. Tells you everything. Kevin Hulling-Wraith, thank you so much indeed. In Yorkshire, not in London, team. Goodness me, you made me look rubbish. 7:45, morning, Adrian.
Adrian on the Isle of Wight. Morning, Jeremy. As far as Starmer is concerned, he could resign, and that we would welcome that, obviously. But if I were he, I would sit down quietly with my little pad and a pen, and I would reshuffle my cabinet. I would get rid of some people and bring in others, and hopefully create a new era of going forward, of change, as he puts it. Personally, I'd like to see the back of him, but I think there's a possibility that he could survive if he changes his team.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Nice slug of tea to take down the latest biscuit. What is it, 7:45? We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Jeremy Kyle on Talk, the home of common sense and, of course, the home of working Brits, the home of alarm clock Brits people. I love this. Hi, Jez. Could you stop having a go at everything to do with our government? I frankly love working more hours every week so bleeding immigrants can live like kings. Yeah, I agree, Sim. What an awful lie. Good morning, JK. It's Trevor Jenkins. I actually don't want Starmer to go. I want him held accountable until an election is called. Otherwise, he'll slink off to a UN or EU job, probably. If Starmer says he won't resign because he's worried about the run on the pound on the markets, instead of resigning, he could call for a government of national unity. It'd be fun. MPs from all sides. He won't, of course. He now has a legacy of being the worst Prime Minister in Great Britain's history. Liz Truss, says Trevor now, can now sleep with a smile. Actually, that's true. He's now officially worse than Liz Truss, Gary Phillis. So Starmer is holed up in Downing Street, depressed. I have news for him. Us little folk have been depressed since you walked into Downing Street. Lots of us knew how much of a disaster you'd be. We'd hoped not, but we didn't hold our breath. Let's hope your parting shot is that you offer your resignation to the King, spite all those idiots around you and call a general election. Happy Monday, says Mike. I can't see Starmer resigning. I think he will think it's over and McSweeney is the fall guy now. Move on. He is a dictator that cancels elections, rivals standing against him and free speech. A dictator doesn't stand down. He gets taken down. Paul's in Dorset. Jesus, you lot are miserable. I'm not depressed because I'm off to the US this week for a holiday. Brilliant. It'll be interesting to hear what people are saying about the UK over there, if indeed they even care about our godforsaken country. Well, I can tell you what Donald Trump's interested about. He's up in arms on Truth Social about Bad Bunny performing halfway through, of course, the Super Bowl last night, because Bad Bunny slagged off Trump, and Trump thinks it's a disgrace and is now going to probably make sure that the Super Bowl never has a place again in the history of the world. Very quickly, we'll go to... It's not, is it? Mandy? Not Peter Mandelson in Northumberland. Mandy? Mandy?
Hello.
Oh, I thought you were Peter Mandelson, Mandy. No, it's... Oh, Mandy. Well, you came and you get... Anyway, listen, we got a minute. Crack on. What's up?
Oh, no, I'm just like... I've been watching the show and I'm like... Oh, I watch it all the time.
Good.
And I'm like... It's a Monday and I'm...
Well done.
Quite absolutely depressed, actually.
What are you depressed about? Because it's Monday.
Oh, well, Monday, and then looking at that flipping Angela.
She's had her hair done. She might be next Prime Minister, our Ange. Be proud, wouldn't it? Look at that on TikTok. Ange having her ginger hair done. Yes, she could be the next Prime Minister. Doesn't that make you happy?
Oh, no. And then Lammy and Milliband. Oh, I'm like, oh, hey, what is happening here?
I'll tell you what's happening. You are watching and listening to the death throes of this Labour government, and there is no doubt, we are on resignation watch on a serious note, there's no doubt that he's going to go. It's just when, not if any longer. And I just think it's fascinating watching this bunch of talentless people. David Lammy, I warned you over... Well, have I done an impression? That's not how he speaks. And Mandelson, she's having her hair done, but still owes HMRC 40 grand. Wes Streeting, oh, yes, I'm the sensible candidate, are you? You organised Mandelson's stag do. You think it's all right to try puberty blockers on kids. Anyway, there's one reason to be happy, Mandy.
What is that?
You've spoken to me.
Oh, OK. Well, it shows on my telly that I'm speaking. Am I not?
Brilliant. Listen, good luck. And I will only say this, Mandy, because you've got a sense of humour, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Keep taking the medication. 9 minutes to 8. We're live across the United Kingdom. Brilliant. With all that's going on in God's country, Northumberland, by the way, that's the old man you say. With all that's going on across the country, right, it is not wrong to say that there are many conspiracy theorists about Epstein, for example. We joke, but this is a man who went from millionaire to multi-billionaire and nobody knows how. This is a man who ended up... We've had the Crown Princess of Denmark sent an email in the Epstein files that said, I want you to have my babies. The Duke of York, the Queen's favourite son, Prime Ministers, Bill Gates, Clinton, Trump. How in the name of God did this man have the tentacles to stretch? What happened? Now, one of the theories is he was a paid-for Russian agent. That was true, they say. Other people say, no, it's Mossad, the Israeli secret forces. Jake Wallace-Simmons wrote in The Telegraph this weekend, one thing we know, Epstein was no Mossad agent. Jake, a very good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Very well. How are you?
Well, honestly, if you want me to be honest, this is just like playing a fruit machine every single day and putting in a quid and out comes the jackpot, because I actually now don't have enough time to even cover what's in the news. It just won't go away, will it?
Well, it's like putting in a coin and something other than jackpot comes out day after day, if you ask me. But I mean, these rumours about Epstein being part of the Mossad. I mean, obviously people blame the Mossad because it's like the bogeyman for a lot of people. You know, all these conspiracy theorists, they love blaming Mossad for everything from 9/11 to Princess Diana's death. They even blame Mossad for infiltrating sharks into the Red Sea whenever there's a shark attack. They're just paranoid about Mossad. But if you look at the actual facts, it's pretty unconvincing, to be honest. I mean, if you look at Robert Maxwell, the media baron who died in 1991 and father, of course, of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's Epstein's co-conspirator. Robert Maxwell died in 1991 at sea. He almost certainly was a Mossad asset. After he died, many former spies said that he was. Many investigative journalists said that he was. He was buried in Jerusalem with high honours, which is unusual for a non-Israeli. And the prime minister of the time, the Israeli prime minister, at his funeral, gave a eulogy where he said that he'd done more for Israel than can today be said. So that's pretty heavy hinting over there. But by contrast, Epstein has been the opposite, wasn't buried in Israel, had no major ties to Israel business-wise, wasn't named by a single former spy or journalist as being a member of Mossad. The current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said that he wasn't. Naftali Bennett, the former Prime Minister, said that rumours he was a Mossad agent were a vicious wave of slander. And even the former head of Mossad, Yossi Cohen, told me on my podcast, The Brink, that he wasn't anything to do with us. And if you look at how he works, I mean, there was no diplomatic intervention after he was arrested. When he was offending, he did so even after his conviction, drawing loads of attention to himself. He left an email trail all over the place about everything that he did. He left loads of witnesses, loads of flight logs. His finances were chaotic, opaque, frequently scrutinized. He was investigated all the time, and no evidence from the FBI, from Congress, anyone else, Department of Justice, pulled up any hint of him being a member of Mossad. Usually declassified files or court exhibits or leaked cables come out with something, but there was nothing of that. So it looks pretty conclusive that he had nothing to do with Mossad, which is bad news, I suppose, for the conspiracy theorists.
What about the conspiracy theorists who think that this guy was financed wholly by the Russians, that this is all Putin? Is there more credence to that suggestion, do you think?
I think that that's more of a possibility, I suppose. I mean, the old KGB, as they were known back in the Cold War, are less professional than Mossad and work to a different agenda. It's possible that that was going on, but I think that the most likely explanation is just that he was a con man and a criminal who worked his way up from fairly humble beginnings.
Where did he get his money, though, Jake? I mean, we're not just talking small. It was a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way, if you were Mossad, would you make somebody into a high-profile, multi-billionaire sex offender in order to be an agent? You'd want your agent to go undercover, to work behind the scenes and to advance the agenda of your country. I mean, it's also notable that Epstein had close connections with Ehud Barak, who was an Israeli former prime minister, who's a dyed-in-the-wool leftist who worked against the government of Israel for the last 20 years, organising left-wing activist networks, has hated the government of Israel for many, many years. Why would a Mossad agent work with him? And he also worked with Noam Chomsky, another radical left, well-known sort of celebrity academic who hates Israel and everything it stands for, and anti-Zionist through and through. Why would he be? So Epstein's done nothing useful for the state of Israel at all in his whole life, has no connections with Israel. Israelis have disavowed him. There's no evidence that he was connected with Mossad. All we've got is some evidence of dodgy dealings. He got his money from somewhere, but it's unlikely that the breadcrumb trail leads to Jerusalem.
Love having you on, mate. You know where I stand on everything. We've only got 1 minute. Does Starmer go?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sort of torn between being desperate to see the back of Starmer. I mean, if he left today, it wouldn't be soon enough. And yet, fearful of whoever comes next. I mean, it's going to be from within the Labour camp. I mean, how long have we got to endure these people before they're kicked out? Year after year, it seems to me. It's going to be painful either way.
Couldn't agree more. Always great to have you on. Jake Wallace-Simmons, thank you so much indeed. Almost 8 o'clock. We're live across the UK. It's Talk Breakfast to come in the next hour. Busy old hour. Zia Youssef, head of policy at Reform, ahead of that big conference today. Nigel Farage making announcements about how they will govern. Potentially some positions we don't know. Ryan Sabedy, deputy political editor of The Sun, and Andrew Loney, the author who wrote The Rise and Fall of the House of York. He's made some shocking revelations over the weekend, including the fact that he thinks an ex-British Prime Minister, Jeffrey Epstein, and a call girl had a threesome. It is an unbelievable time to be able to do a speech breakfast show. Honest to God, it's madness. Keep your calls coming. 0344 499 1000 and your text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. And the news at 8 is next.
Where was Billie Eilish's speech when Laken Riley got killed by an illegal immigrant in the United States? None of them spoke out about that. When I say them, I'm talking about the Hollywood elite. They do all live in these Calabasas gated communities. They've got no idea what's going on.
I've been fascinated to hear from all of our fantastic American viewers what you think. I've got an idea. You want to solve all your problems in terms of the migrant crisis and ICE. Just declare Minnesota to be an independent country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp. Do you feel safe for her? No, so that will have to stop. Right. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen. Kind of that nowadays, Nigel, what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened, you know.
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no!
We would urge her to reconsider. And whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Welcome back to the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talks, the home of common sense. It's the home of Alarm Clock Brits. And it's the radio station that we found this out last week, are listening to longer than any other speech-based radio station in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much indeed for that. And we are officially on resignation watch. Every single newspaper in the land. So how long can Starmer cling on? Front of the Mail. Labour MPs up in arms. Of course, at the weekend, Keir Starmer trying to fight off this appalling decision to employ Peter Mandelson as the US ambassador with all of his links to Epstein. Last week, he was finally forced by Badenoch in the Commons to admit that he knew. Since then, he's been holed up in Downing Street. Yesterday, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, resigned, which is really interesting, of course, because when Keir Starmer says, I have total confidence in you, we then open a bet on how long you've got. This is him having confidence in McSweeney 5 days ago.
The Prime Minister chose to inject Mandelson's poison into the heart of his government on the advice of Morgan McSweeney. His catastrophic lack of judgment, telling us now that he did know, has harmed the special relationship. It has endangered national security. It's not the humble address, it's him. It's compromised our diplomacy, and it has embarrassed our nation. After all of this, does he have the same full confidence in Morgan McSweeney that he had in Peter Mandelson?
Prime Minister. Morgan McSweeney is an essential part of my team. He helped me change the Labour Party and win an election. Of course I have confidence in him.
Of course you do. That was Wednesday and he was gone by Sunday, which is absolutely extraordinary. Now, McSweeney, I don't know whether he's a sacrificial lamb, quite interestingly in his resignation letter said, I have always believed there are moments when you must accept your responsibility and step aside for the bigger cause. In public life, responsibility must be owned when it matters most, not just when it's convenient. I ask you this morning, my friends, if the man that gave that dodgy advice to employ Mandelson said go with it, has to resign, doesn't the man who made the most appalling decision to drag his government into the gutter still further have to make the same decision? The vultures are circling, just to put a little bit of humour into it. David Lammy, that's a possibility. He said, I warned him over Mandelson. Our Ange has had a makeover. Front of the Mail. She put that on TikTok, having her hair done. Think the council cut that. She's still trying to fight off HMRC. And Wes Streeting, known as the darling of the right, the man who thinks puberty blockers are a good idea. It turns out that he organised Mandelson's stag do. So they're all a bit fishy. So loads of pressure. What is going to happen next? Dale, good morning.
Jeremy, mate, great show as always. I just messaged in, but I just want to add a little bit. And I've just sat here for a few minutes thinking about it. And it might be a little bit controversial, but I just want somebody in power who is going to do their inauguration speech, as they say, and just say, do you know what? You're not going to see me or hear from me for a couple of weeks. I need to get into an office with my best advisors, my best people. We need to strip everything back to the bones and start again. And then they come out and then they say, right, this is what we're doing. Step 1, step 2, step 3, etc. I don't want somebody turning around and saying, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you. Because at the end of the day, they don't know what they can do until they fix the problems at hand. Get the country back on track, sorted, done. I'm just fed up of lies after lie after lie.
And I think Dale sums up so many in Britain. They're sick and tired of politicians who pretend to be squeaky clean and then you find whatever else. People who make promises like the Tories they don't see through. I would go further than Dale. What I want as a voter is a person, man or woman, to stand in front of me and go, this is me, I'm not squeaky clean, I've done this, that and the other, here's my plan, I'm going to take you on a journey, there'll be good days and bad days, I'll always be straight with you, I ain't going to get everything right, but let's do our best together. I say to Zia Youssef, Head of Policy at Reform UK, is Nigel Farage that man, Zia?
Well, people know Nigel. People have known Nigel for decades, and they've gotten to know Keir Starmer over the last couple of years, and what we've seen is a historic collapse in his approval ratings. In fact, Keir Starmer is in fact only 2 points more popular in the UK amongst the British public than the Black Plague is amongst the American public, according to YouGov. So we've never seen anything like it. He's the most unpopular prime minister this country's ever recorded. And by the way, that was obviously before this Mandelson stuff came out. And you're right, I think Starmer is obviously now on resignation watch. But what's really interesting, I think there's some hidden and coded messages actually in his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney's resignation letter. You know, when he goes into detail, as you just read out, he says it's important that those who make it's important to take responsibility when it matters, not just when it's convenient. And he also, by the way, said that he was not in charge of the vetting process. And I think that's a pretty clear coded message, maybe not that coded actually, to say that Keir Starmer is ultimately the person who obviously made that decision. He's the Prime Minister. He had the entire security services at his disposal, MI5, MI6 and GCHQ, to vet his appointment to be US ambassador. And it was always clear this was the man that he wanted. And now he's extremely exposed because Morgan McSweeney, remember, was the protege of Peter Mandelson, wasn't he? And so he was the real dark artist, as it were, that Keir Starmer called upon to do his dirty work. And look, it's now just a question of time. It's a matter of if, not when, Keir Starmer resigns. And I just feel sorry for the British people because Starmer is now exactly where the last 4 or 5 Tory prime ministers were, spending all of their time and energy trying to save their own bacon, save their own skin, literally survive day to day. All of his cabinet ministers are not spending time trying to turn the country around and help people. They're just spending their time plotting to replace Keir Starmer and try and get an even better cabinet position next time round. So the British public have not had a serious, loyal and competent government in this country, I think, for well over a decade now.
I agree with you about the positioning and again, straight down the line, we'll talk about policy and reform and Nigel Farage in a minute, but you look at the alternatives, and I want to put this to you. There are many people texting me this morning saying that Keir Starmer is a puppet. Now his main, string puller has gone, that he's at the mercy of several different facets of the Labour Party, the many that I talked about for so long, that it's untenable and all that. Can you see a situation, not just because you'd like this, but can you see a situation where his sort of last piece of action would be to basically take any opportunity away from any of those dullards to take over from him and literally call a general election, even if he knew they were going to lose, because he just doesn't like the thought of losing those levers of power, Zia? Can you see that happening or not?
I think that would probably overstate the degree of control that remains for Keir Starmer inside the Labour Party. He's clearly, not in control. It's his backbench MPs who have been in control for some time. Because if you remember, even the first semblance of any type of welfare reform, scratching at the surface of what this country needs, given welfare is now a runaway train to which the entire economy is attached. Even that, there was a massive rebellion. And we may have seen just this week talk of another massive rebellion in opposition to the Home Secretary's, again, very minor immigration reforms. Still nothing even close to what the country needs to stop the boats, let alone do anything else. And again, almost 50 Labour MPs have told media that they would vote against it. So it is the Labour Parliamentary Party who are sadly in charge, and it will be the Labour members, heaven forbid, it will be the Labour members who choose the next prime minister. And this is why we're saying there must be a general election, because there will be no mandate for whatever the hell comes after Keir Starmer. It's going to be well to the left of him. I mean, almost every poll of Labour members shows that Mad Ed Miliband, of all people, is miles in the lead. One of the most insane, incompetent, and ideologically possessed people ever to hold high office in this country.
And can I just jump in and
destroying
say,
our economy in real time with his mad net zero policies. Starmer tried to fire him, if you remember, just a couple of months ago, walked into his office, said, off you go. And he said, I'm not going anywhere, mate. And we're in a situation where, sadly, I think he's odds on now to be the next prime minister. And that's why we must have a general election. There is no mandate for that in this country.
I tell you what I think as well. I'd be interested in your opinion on this. I know people will say, Poppy Coburn said it, Isabel said it, that actually, you know, it's a 5-year term, it's a large majority. I've a great belief in the British people, and I've said this for months to the point where people say, you say it every day, I do. I think the silent majority have woken up in this country and realised that through unity their voice can be heard. I think there would be such a clamour if somebody, probably in hindsight will be worse than Starmer, became Prime Minister. I've never believed it. I've never believed that it's right. I've said it for as long as I can believe. People will say, yes, but you vote for a party. But a Prime Minister gets a mandate from the British people. And if you come in and you have a different agenda and a different series of policies you want to put forward, you don't have a mandate for that. I don't care what anybody says. I know they voted Labour, but in essence, most people will have gone, yeah, Starmer should be our Prime Minister. He's failed miserably. Just to take you up on one point, you said that he's less popular than the plague. I tell you, this will make you smile, dear. His popularity rating is worse than Maduro's in Venezuela before Trump took him out with the American SEALs. That's true.
Yeah, that's unsurprising. I mean, remember, Keir Starmer is a prime minister who already had no electoral mandate for all of his most prominent policies that his government have announced since he became the prime minister. He only became the prime minister because the Tory vote collapsed in the general election because the British public was sick of their betrayal, sick of their corruption and their sleaze. So therefore, Starmer's only offering to the British people was simply that he wasn't going to be corrupt and sleazy. And what have we since then? Just an endless fire hose of corruption, sleaze and scandal. Remember, it started with Lord Alley and the Downing Street passes and the designer clothes and dresses and spectacles that weren't declared, giving a donor a job in the Treasury without telling anyone. And then, of course, he's cancelled elections for millions of people twice. That wasn't in the manifesto. Trying to impose digital ID, not in the manifesto. Driven a farmer to suicide with his inheritance tax rate on farmers, wasn't in the manifesto. The winter fuel allowance, and then U-turning on that, not in the manifesto. So this was why his popularity had already cratered to sub-zero levels. And now this Mandelson thing is, I think it's the coup de grace. As I said, it's just a question of when and not if Starmer is replaced.
Before we talk about Nigel Farage and your party, does Mandelson go to jail, in your opinion?
I think almost certainly. I mean, if you look at the emails that are in the public domain, there's a clear prima facie case, I think, for a whole raft of crimes. If you look at, I think the police already investigating for misconduct in public office. I think there's other things as well, like market manipulation, potentially insider trading. Remember, this is just the emails that are in the public domain. And by the way, from what I understand, there's millions more documents still to be published. And by the way, what we're going to see in the coming weeks, now is a steady drip feed of documents, WhatsApp messages, emails between Labour cabinet ministers and advisors and Peter Mandelson. That's why this is now, I think, terminal for Starmer's career. And look, do I think, from what I can see, Peter Mandelson probably belongs in jail? Yes, probably.
Resignation watch. I reckon Friday the 13th, you'll laugh at me. You think he'll hang on a bit, do you? I think he'll be gone this week.
He may well do. He may well do. I mean, look, again, it just comes down to who's going to replace him and also whether a Labour replacement feels that they want to take on what is clearly going to be a catastrophic performance in May and potentially for them in this Gorton and Denton by-election. I was up there supporting Matt Goodwin on Saturday. It was a record-breaking day for reform, by the way. Unbelievable. We had an insane number of volunteers out. We're so grateful for them, and we collected more voting intention and more reform pledges on a single day than at any point in this party's history. So we've got huge momentum on our side. You know, calling out exactly when Starmer is going to resign is difficult. I think it's definitely coming imminently. But as I said, I think what's really important is that whoever replaces him has a proper mandate from the British people, because having the support of 15% of the country, with a walloping majority in the House of Commons, and doing things that the vast majority of the people in this country not only don't support but actively would vote against, I think is totally untenable and unfair to the British public.
Today in Birmingham, the Reform Party are holding what I guess you'd call a rally. Every one of the 8 MPs are going to be grilled by that television presenter. I can't remember his name. Oh, yes, me. Are you going to be there later in Birmingham?
I will be, yeah. It's going to be a really big day for us up in Birmingham for Reform. Nigel will give a keynote speech setting out his plans, his agenda. Obviously, we know Britain is broken, but we also know that this is a great country that has actually come through more difficult times, darker times than this in our proud history. And Nigel will lay out a whole multitude of ways that he plans as Prime Minister to help us turn this great country around. You're going to hear themes like reindustrialization. This country doesn't make things anymore. Industrial production in terms of heavy industry is at 35-year lows. We don't make cars anymore. In fact, Britain manufactures fewer cars today than we did 70 years ago. Not 7 years ago, 70 years ago. Why? Not least because we're allowing countries like China to dump cars, to dump steel, to basically use their means of production as a trade weapon against this country. And we've had absolutely hapless and incompetent politicians unwilling to do anything about it. So we've got to start manufacturing things here again. He's going to talk about challenges, obviously, that we face on our borders, the continued real-time invasion of this country. More illegal migrants have turned up on our beaches uninvited under Keir Starmer than any other Prime Minister. And we should not forget that. It's still happening, despite the rhetoric from his new Home Secretary. So it's going to be really interesting. I'd encourage everyone to tune in. It's going to be a great day.
As ever with these things, the press, lots of press reporting that Nigel is going to begin the process of not only talking about the policies and preparing for government, but also in some detail about how his MPs and other people would form positions in a shadow cabinet. You're going to flat back this at me, because of course you will. Any idea if it's going to be announced today, or have you been tipped the wink on a position for yourself, Zia?
I think your instincts are correct there. Look, ultimately, these are decisions for Nigel to make. He will be announcing a team reasonably soon. But look, ultimately, if you go into politics, this has been a remarkable journey. I've been in politics about 18, 19 months now. It's been a remarkable journey, and I mean this sincerely. If I'm fortunate enough to get one of those roles, I accept it very gratefully. I think it's a privilege and an honour to do that. But what I'd also say is, you're going to hear from Nigel today about how important it is that we continue to find the best talent in this country. I maintain, I've said this for some time, Nigel's cabinet, if he wins and he's Prime Minister and Reform win, it'll be a meaningfully smaller cabinet than is currently the case. And also the majority of those positions will be taken up by people from outside of politics, people who have achieved outstanding things in the real world. So if you're listening to this and you're one of those people, please watch Nigel's address today for some instructions.
Do you plan to run as an MP at all? Never asked you that before.
Yeah, I'd like to do that at some point. I think you can have more impact as a parliamentarian, but we'll see what happens. I mean, look, I've got more than enough on my plate at the moment. I don't have many spare minutes and hours in my day. But yeah, that's definitely something I'd like to do in the future.
Can you help me out? So when I interview all these 8, because we used to be 5, now it was 7. That was a magnificent 7. Have we got a line for the 8? Can you think of anything?
Oh God.
I know.
I might have to come back to you on that one.
The after 8? No, that's ridiculous, Christian. Listen, Zia Yusuf is head of policy at Reform. He'll come up with something. Mate, listen, really appreciate your time as ever. We'll see you later on in Birmingham. Thank you very much indeed. Head of policy, Zia Yusuf, saying that he would at some point consider standing as an MP for Reform. He mentioned the Gorton and Denton by-election. We are in what's called, I'm always honest with people, we're in Purdah. We have to be as balanced as possible. I must tell you the candidates that are running. Nick Buckley for Advance UK. Charlotte Cadden for the Conservative Party. We spoke to her last week. Dan Clark for the Libertarian Party. Matt Goodwin spoke to him at the beginning of last week from Reform. Sebastian Moore, the Social Democratic Party. Joseph Omiche rejoined the EU. Jackie Piercy for the Liberal Democrats. Hannah Spencer for the Green Party. Angelika Stoggia for the Labour Party. Hugo Wills, the Communist lead. And Sir Oinkalot, yes, the monster raving Lunar Party. I have to make this point. We will and have reached out to each and every one of those candidates to give them the chance to come on and tell us what they would do in this campaign. As I say, we've spoken to Charlotte Cadden from the Conservative Party and also Matt Goodwin from Reform, but the doors are absolutely open for the other people on this show. 8:21. Let's go to the break with Sean. Morning, Shawnee.
Morning, Jezza. Sean of Cheshire here. I'm waking up every day delighted and wondering, thinking what more bad stuff can come out. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. Anyway, who is this guy, Will Starmer? Everybody keeps talking about Will Starmer, and we're having a chat here at home and saying we can't find who Will Starmer is, but everyone keeps saying, will Starmer resign? I'm sure he may. I'm sure he will. Will Starmer do this? So he's obviously around somewhere, but please, somebody identify who Will Starmer is. Cheers.
The Prime Minister was entitled to take from what David Lammy was saying with a big pinch of salt, really. I mean, this is the guy, David, who used to defend the right to jury trial until he didn't. I've got the PM's best interests at heart. I'm texting him at 6 o'clock this morning, the PM. You know, he knows where
Did he text back, Carl?
He didn't, to be fair, Peter, but the stuff I was saying was fairly contentious. I don't expect the Prime Minister to get into a conversation with me.
What were you telling him this morning?
I was saying, look, you've got a chance to survive here, but you've got to get him out the door.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:23. So much going on. We are Talk. We are The Breakfast Show. And thank you very much indeed. I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. Audience figures last week showing that more of you are listening for longer than ever before to this radio station. And more, you're listening to this station longer than any other speech radio station in the UK. Thank you for that. It's the home of common sense. It's 0344 499 1000 for your for your voice notes and your calls. You can text 87222. Hello to Simon in West Lancashire. It's time. We demand our country back and real leadership. We've been tarred as racists and far-right bigots and fascists for years. The rebuilding begins. It'll take time and possibly a lot more pain, but patriots are waiting to put their shoulder behind a reform government. Jess, didn't Ange get rewarded with a payoff too? So she could at least pay 50% of her HMRC bill. Paula, good morning, Jeremy. Great show. I think Keir Starmer needs to have his knighthood taken away as well as him resigning. Oh, that's it. Kick a man when he's absolutely down. Ivor from Chelms. Why did I do that? No idea. Morning, Jez. So Keir Starmer is holed up at number 10 and depressed. Does this mean he can now claim universal credit and work from home? Brilliant. Morning, Jez. Team. Starmer won't go anywhere until the Chagos deal is done. Darren in Cambridgeshire. I sort of agree with that. That's one of those things that you go, oh, you know, I made a real difference. Did you? You gave away a piece of sovereign land and £16 billion of our money. when we're absolutely skint. Steve says Starmer will not set down before the World Cup because he won't get free tickets. Ooh. Dennis in Manchester, morning, Jez. Starmer will likely stay until the locals in May because no one else wants that debacle on their watch. That's probably true. It'll also give angry Rayner time to get a legal trouble sorted out, which will please the Parliamentary Labour Party but horrifies the rest of us. What a joy it is living in this country. Great, so miserable. Roger from Wales. I don't know why, again. I think that when Starmer quits, it should be declared a national holiday. Oh, that's a bit unfair, isn't it? Jez, great show. The Reform Eight, you could call them the After Eights. They're getting our country back on track. Yes, we've done that already. Stephen Cornwall. Apart from Gordon Brown, the grandees of the Labour Party, including the union leaders, are all keeping very quiet on the Mandelston-Epstein saga. Are they bunking down because they're panicking? You could argue, right, that Gordon Brown came out quickly last week. He eviscerated Mandelson, probably because he too could be accused of making an appalling decision. Morning, Tony.
Morning, Jeremy. Tony from North Somerset. Your McSweeney Starmer debacle just goes on and on. McSweeney's gone. What a clang. He's part of the problem. Starmer's the main problem. In fact, the entire government's part of the problem. I actually skipped breakfast this morning, where I usually have some toast. I've saved some room because Starmer is toast by the end of the week. Keep up the good work. Great show as usual.
Toast, brilliant. Kerry is in Coventry. As a small business owner, this is important. If I hired someone up to shenanigans, the buck would stop at my door, and as a regulated business, I would be shut down. I believe politics should be in the same position. This is why doing due diligence when hiring is important. Clive in Weston-super-Mare. I don't know whether I should say this. Epstein, Mandy, Randy, Andy and Fergie would have all been a fantastic guest on the Jeremy Kyle show years ago. The man that sent that was from Weston-super-Mare, the biggest catchment area for the Jeremy Kyle show in past, so maybe he knows what he's talking about. 8:28. We'll say good morning to the Deputy Political Editor of The Sun, Ryan Saby. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, Jeremy. All well?
Yeah, when I took this job, I thought, oh, God, we're going to talk about news for 4 hours? Are you joking? Mate, this is like going to the penny machines and putting in 1p and winning £10 every single day. Have you ever in your life known anything engulf the media as this whole Epstein debacle?
No, and I go back to Partygate, to Liz Truss, to Brexit, to the end of Boris Johnson, and I don't think we've seen anything quite like it in the best part of 10 years. People have been talking about this as being the biggest political scandal since the Perfumer affair in the 60s. And I think it's exactly that. It's something that's rocked the state, it's rocked politics, it's rocked royalty. And, we haven't seen the end of it. None of us will know at the moment as we comb through these 3 million files where exactly all this is going to end up.
Politically today, Front of the Mail screams it out. So how long can Starmer cling on? Over the weekend, I thought, love your take on this. I thought it was quite interesting. McSweeney, love him or loathe him. I thought that the speech was I think Zia's right. In public life, responsibility must be owned when it matters, Ryan, not just when it's most convenient. In circumstances, the only course is to step aside, which I've done. Was that a dig, do you think? Because many Labour MPs, which is interesting, are now saying openly to any media outlet, it's not if, it's when. He's a dead man walking, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he knows that. He knows that he's made a grave mistake in appointing Peter Mandelson to that top diplomatic job, and it's just a matter, I think, of when the other leadership contenders feel it's an appropriate moment to jump over the edge. Keir Starmer might have bought himself a few weeks, a few months. We've got a by-election in a couple of weeks. Got those May elections as well. It is a matter of when. I think he's got several big problems. All these decisions over the past 18 months or so many U-turns, and this has just topped the lot of it, really. And I think MPs, you speak to them privately, some are coming out publicly and don't want him in that top position, but privately they know things have got to change. But the trouble is, what is the solution? Is there anyone better in the Labour ranks who can take over? And I think that's the big problem for those Labour MPs.
I mean, that's where the conversation goes, isn't it? Because in essence, what we're saying is, and we're not being unfair, if you look at that front bench, if you look at the protagonists, I mean, we've had it. Lammy, oh, Jesus, he's turned on the PM saying he warned him over Mandelson. Wes Streeting, we found out this morning, he organised Mandelson's stag do. He's completely up to his neck in it. Angela's had a makeover. There's somebody that hasn't been talked about, though, and that's Shabana Mahmood, who I think is probably somebody who would gain some traction. But if you look at the Parliamentary Labour Party and you look at the membership, out in front by an absolute mile, and how frightening is this, is Mad Ed Miliband. I mean, could Starmer survive simply at the thought of him? No, because the unions will control Miliband, and that's what will happen. He as Prime Minister, Ryan? Jesus, man.
Yeah, I mean, Ed Miliband has said several times in recent weeks and months that he doesn't want to go for this job.
Of course he has.
When that job and the thought of going into number 10 and running the show actually, comes to you, and you have the opportunity to do that, I wouldn't put that past any single politician. Now, Shabana Mahmood, has received a lot of plaudits at Justice and as Home Secretary. The trouble for her is the Parliamentary Labour Party is nowhere near where she is, and the public is nowhere near where she is. Yeah. So it could well be good for the public or some MPs, but the trouble is that they're just not going to buy it, and she would just very, very difficult for her to get to the latter stages of any contest.
Calls, there's all sorts of calls. Front page of your lovely newspaper, The Sun today. Andy leaked envoy docs to Epstein. There's the royal angle as well. I mean, you've got Mandelson, who I believe will go to jail. There's rumours over the weekend he should be paying back the money he got as severance. Let's talk quickly to you about Andy. I'm pretty sure that the monarchy are under massive pressure now to come out and speak, and they're going to have to. Because if this guy has been through his trade envoy, he'll be in the same boat as Mandelson, won't he? Trading secrets of this country to their paedophile mate.
Yeah, a very, very difficult situation for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Whereas over a few weeks ago, when he wasn't that sort of, working royal, or now he seems to, totally in exile. It'd be interesting to see what the police do, or whether any complaints are made to the police over that. But as you say, it probably does need someone from the royal family. We had Prince Edward. He was speaking at a conference just last week. Just wonder whether it needs someone a little bit more senior than that. Prince William is currently out in Saudi Arabia on a 3-day tour. Will it need him? Will it need King Charles to come out and say something? It just feels like it needs something from the royal family to shore something up, reassure those victims, and actually say something publicly.
I made the analogy this morning, and I stand by it, when the Queen was stuck up at Balmoral after Diana's death, and she was up there looking after the grandchildren, and I believe, because she was amazing, that was her first thought. But the clamour from the British public to hear from their monarch grew and grew, and she flew down famously and addressed the nation. I think he needs to get on the front foot, Charles, because I think people are demanding, and also they see, Ryan, let's be honest, they see that the King's brother, who, if this is true, I don't even want to get as sordid as these emails are, is being flown in the dead of night to a luxurious place and be financed for the rest of his life. Actually, if he turns out to be as bad as Mandelson, then I believe the police should prosecute him or charge him or try him. And it shouldn't be, because somebody put it here, right? This is really, and I'm the biggest royalist in the world. Vicky in Bournemouth. Morning, Jez. No, I don't want Charles to talk about his brother, because I don't think any of us are continuing to believe a word these elites say anymore. That's the issue the monarchy's got now.
Yeah, man, and I think King Charles, I don't think it's going to be a moment where if he's doing, he's on a walkabout, someone throws a microphone under his nose and he talks. I just wonder whether he sits down in a more considered approach, whether it's an interview or some sort of TV interview or some kind of statement where actually he explains the family's position on what he's done to his brother. I think it just needs a big intervention.
Agreed.
And the way that the Prince of Wales, Prince William, is looking at it, he's got to be looking at where the monarchy goes 20, 30, 40 years hence from this. He's got to be thinking about the future of the royal of the monarchy. And I just wonder whether it may well be him who makes that move.
Seminal moment. Apparently, I've got to play this voice note because I've got to play it for you. Jane, good morning.
Morning, JK. No one's mentioned Rachel Reeves. Why can't Rachel be the next Prime Minister? I know, I've not been drinking, honestly.
Oh my God, Ryan, we never thought of that. Rachel Thieves is the Prime Minister. What do you think?
Well, I think at the beginning of this government, I think that people were talking about her as being a potential leadership contender. But I think over the past 18 months, I think if you look at the winter fuel issue, the welfare issue, the tax raising budget as well, the national insurance rise and the impact that's had on business, I'm sure that most of us, will concede that that's not going to happen.
Can I just say, you can absolutely hear why this man is a most respected journalist and deputy political editor of The Sun. What a fantastic, politically brilliant, balanced answer. I was just going to go, because she's completely flipping incompetent. That's why I can't add up. Well done, Ryan Sabey. Very quickly, I, in my transparent guise as a presenter, am going up to Birmingham today to host the Reform Conference, where Nigel Farage is going to speak about, allegedly, how he's preparing for government. Lots of rumours that he might well be near to announcing his shadow cabinet. I just got an exclusive. Zia Youssef said he would like to stand as an MP at some point. Robert Jenrick was on earlier saying any offer would be gladly received. Heard anything? Know anything?
Well, the one thing that I think would be a good position, put Robert Jenrick at the top of that tree, whether it's Shadow Chancellor or Shadow Home Secretary. I think he'd be good as Shadow Chancellor, actually. I think he'd do well in the Commons against Rachel Reeves and Mel Stride. I think that could be an astute thing. Also moves him away from immigration, where he could be prone to attack, obviously, because he was there in government when those numbers went up. So, yeah, I think Shadow Chancellor would be a good move for him, and it'd be a good move from Nigel Farage, actually.
Sean in Bridlington says, I'll go with what Ryan tells me. What's the betting Starmer resigns at 3 p.m. today to upstage the Reform rally?
Well, I'll be watching closely. I think, for today, in terms of Keir Starmer, I think he's due to address his own staff, and I think he's then going to address the Parliamentary Labour Party at 6 o'clock tonight. I think the message at the moment is we'll fight on, but we'll just see how long that fight lasts.
You're a good man. Thank you so much indeed for your time. As ever, Ryan Sabey, Deputy Political Editor of The Sun. It's all kicking off here on Resignation Watch on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. Keir Starmer holed up in number 10 Downing Street. He's lost his Chief of Staff. A majority of his MPs, Carl Turner will have on after 9, saying, you got to go, mate. Your time's up. Your judgment's appalling. Mandy facing a criminal prosecution, jail quite rightly. Andrew Mountbatten, whatever his name is, the ex-Duke of York. He possibly as well facing a criminal investigation. Our own royal family under pressure to come out and say something. And I was just reading this and made me think, right, this puts it all into balance. Steve, I wake up every morning surprised the lights still work, even though my government doesn't. And I was thinking, we're all sat here with a completely incompetent government, high taxes, we've got illegal immigrants coming into this country in droves, everything doesn't seem to work and the weather's crap. And what's Elon Musk doing? He's working on a self-growing city to live on the moon. We're rubbish in this country, aren't we? Morning, Steve.
Hi, Jeremy. Steve from Manchester. Great show again, and this Keir Starmer business, I hope he does go, and I hope he calls the general elections. I was a Tory voter for the last 25 years, 30 years, and I would never, ever vote for them again. We need change. These old parties, they're done. It's as simple as that. I don't think anybody will vote for them again, and anybody who does vote for them are just delusional. Anyway, great show, mate. Keep up the good work.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Yeah, Julia Hartley-Brewer, the Queen of Westminster, here from 10 o'clock, and Ian Collins from 1 o'clock this afternoon. We're live across the UK. This is Talk. Thank you for tuning in. The home of common sense and free speech. Your station, 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We've talked politics, we've talked Starmer, we've talked Resignation Watch. We should also talk about the front of the Sun. Andy leaked envoy docs to Epstein. The royal family, by many people, and bear in mind I'm a royalist, are I believe, a seminal moment. Do they come out and speak? Probably, and they need to as soon as possible. We're delighted to have on the author of Entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, Andrew Loney. A very good morning. Welcome to Talk.
Good morning. Nice to be back.
There's so much I want to ask you, but let's start with that shocking revelation that you came out with in the last few days, implying, and I quote, that somewhere in the files there will come to pass the information that a past British Prime Minister, and I can't, children's ears, had a threesome with Jeffrey Epstein and a call girl. I mean, one begs to, I'm not going to, people can, I'm just going to say, how shocking more is this story going to get?
Well, I think it has still some way to go. I mean, I've known about the story about the former Prime Minister for some time, but I see that actually it is in the files. There is a release there. People don't seem to have picked it up, but actually there's an FBI correspondence discussing it. So I'm sure that name will eventually appear.
I don't know what to say. Oh, sorry, it wasn't with it was with Ghislaine Maxwell, just to put it all into, is what it says here with Ghislaine Maxwell. There we go. Andrew, can I ask you, you've been incredibly forceful in the House of York and how this entire mess would unfold. You seem to be the least surprised person. Before we talk specifics, what I'm getting from the audience today is a sort of amalgamation of politics and royalty. I mean, we heard over the weekend the Crown Princess of Denmark had written Epstein a letter saying, I'd love to have your babies. This is a seminal moment, is it not, for the royal family? I mean, I am fervently royalist, but I believe our king needs to come out and speak pretty bloody quickly.
Yes, I mean, I'm a monarchist too, and this is partly why, and I'm sure many people will feel that Andrew has undermined the good work that the other members of the royal family do. I agree. I think it's a moment rather like the Queen speaking after Diana's death, where a statement needs to be made. I've been trying. I mean, I think there are two bits of pressure. One is on the government to release these files of him as a trade envoy, something I've been trying to do for 5 or 6 years now, and they've refused. Because I know that will reveal that people like Epstein were on these trips and he was basically revealing confidential information which would put him up for misuse in public office, abuse of his position, which is what people are going after Peter Mandelson for. But I do agree that the palace do need to make a statement. I think also they need to come clean because they've known about the Andrew problem for years. They've actually tried to cover it up. The press, when they raised some of these issues, found that they were either denied or they had legal threats or indeed strong-arm tactics were used against them. For example, removing access to members of the royal family for interviews. So I don't think the palace is completely clean here. And if they want to win back the trust and respect of the British public, I think they need to be much more open about what has actually really happened. Andrew doesn't operate on his own. He was enabled and protected by a whole panoply of people, including the palace, for many, many years.
One begs to ask this, actually, why? You describe it as the Andrew problem. We saw that footage, I saw it over the weekend, of at the memorial for the Duke of Edinburgh, the frail Queen in the green coat walked in, everybody was sat down, and this was 3 years after the Mateless Newsnight interview, and there he is, the ex-Duke of York, in all his pomp and glory, helping his mother. I repeat, fervent royalist. But what did she think the 12 million quid was for? Did she, I mean, was she just sweet and had no idea? Because you talk about people covering this up. Why would they? Why would they cover up what he was up to?
Well, because it's deeply embarrassing, and they're worried about the ramifications and the support for the monarchy, all the problems that have happened now. I mean, I think the tragedy is if they dealt with this problem earlier, they wouldn't be having the problems they have now. And wider calls now for public accountability of royal privilege. But I mean, the fact is that the Queen was a wonderful monarch, but she didn't always put the monarchy ahead of her family. I mean, she was giving awards to Andrew, Knight of the Garter and things, even after the allegations arose, and supporting him very publicly, which made people think that perhaps he was innocent when he wasn't. And I think it's just one of those blind spots that she had.
Do you know why, or do you have an idea as to why she had a blind spot with him?
Yes, I mean, she realised she hadn't been a great mother to Charles. Andrew was part of the second family, and she sort of felt that she had to make up for it. So she spoilt him, and he had no boundaries. He was told he was wonderful, and together with his character, which was rather sort of boisterous, the whole problem began to develop, and all the way through his life, whether it's at school, in the Navy, or elsewhere, he's been told he's wonderful, and no one has really spoken truth to power. And that's the problem. There are very few people who do that within royal circles. They're surrounded by people who are fawning sycophants.
What do you say to the people that say that and I agree with you, actually, that the royal family have obviously covered this up. There wasn't a desire to change his behaviour. I like what you said about strong-arm tactics. Do you think it pins or points to a feeling that if he was cast adrift, that he could spill on the royal family and that could be more damaging? Because many people, Andrew, are saying to me, well, if he is what he is, he should face trial like Mandy probably will, but he's going to be cosseted and ride his horses and live for free and act like whatever in the privacy of the King's Sandringham estate. Is that right?
Yes, well, I mean, I do think there are grounds, and I have said this for a long time, both for sex trafficking and for misconduct in public office. And I've offered the information I have, stuff I couldn't use for legal reasons, to the National Crime Agency and the Met. The Met, neither of them really want to go here. I mean, they've tried to duck the issue. I've asked freedom of information requests about whether they've even investigated him, and they refuse to answer. So I think it is pressure needs to be put. MPs now need, I think, to have a parliamentary investigation into his time as a trade envoy with all the people who are not talking, the former heads of UKTI, the ambassadors in Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, because they were aiding him in this. They know what went on. I know about whistleblowers who's found their careers were curtailed when they tried to raise this, ambassadors who suddenly found their next posting was in Lagos, or people in the DTI who had to leave the civil service. So, I mean, this is a bigger problem, but I think you're absolutely right. The royal family is at a crossroads. Are they going to make themselves fit for purpose for the 21st century and abandon their secretive ways, or are they going to continue to operate in the way they do with very, very little transparency and accountability?
I imagine there's quite not a power struggle, but I can imagine right now you've got the King who, and I've always defended Andrew, because if your destiny in life is simply that you'll only get your job that you're born into when your mother dies, and so you spend 70 years waiting for that opportunity. If you open your mouth, you're an interfering freak, and if you say nothing, you're just taking advantage. I've always supported him. I thought he was incredibly brave and open with his cancer diagnosis and treatment, and I think that overall he's done as good a job as he could do. And I don't tread carefully by asking this. Do you think Andrew's got stuff on our King, which also might be one of the reasons why he seems reticent to just hold a broadcast and say sorry to the victims?
Well, he may do. I don't know. But I think there's certainly a power struggle going on between the King and the Prince of Wales.
Yeah.
And the Prince of Wales wants to clean the stables before he inherits. And I do think that this issue will define Charles's reign. And it can go either way, either the King who refused to address this problem, or the King who actually solved this problem. Because I think there is a great deal of support for the monarchy, but it's rapidly being diminished because of the way that Andrew behaved and has been allowed to behave.
And I think last week as well, when they in a slightly clandestine way, put him on a plane and got him out of Royal Lodge. I believe that the tipping point was him prancing around, you know, outside Windsor Castle on the Long Walk, where I lived for 7 years, so I know it very well, riding his horse and waving at people as if there was no care in the world. Because what does that say to all those girls who were trafficked and were taken advantage of by a man and his regime that Andrew was very, very much a part of? I mean, we had hours and hours of debate, didn't we, about, you know, will he ever be seen again? What other alternatives does Charles have? He's banished him to Sandringham. Do you believe in the long run he'll have to go abroad and be gone out of sight and out of mind, or do you think he'll explode and make threats and so they'll keep pandering to him privately?
Well, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, the king bankrolls him. I mean, there is pressure there, for example, through his daughters. I mean, are they going to remain part of the royal family, royal princesses, able to continue to do their business in the Middle East, promoting Saudi banks? I mean, there are pressure points that could be exerted on Andrew. The king hasn't done that. I think he does need to. I don't think the apology is what he needs to do, but I think he needs to explain what's happened. And I think make a statement that if Andrew should be investigated, and if he's found guilty, he should face charges. The last thing the royal family want is a trial. I mean, we saw that with the Paul Burrell case. And so I think, unfortunately, what's going to happen is Andrew will flee from justice in the way that King Juan Carlos of Spain did, and he will end up in the Middle East. But I don't think the royal family should be seen to be abetting that flight. But I do think that no one is above the law, and I think the king needs to make that very clear, because I think the law enforcement agencies are kind of working on the assumption that he is.
Well, interesting, just to finish, you said that for years the Andrew problem was covered up because he was pampered to and allowed to get away with it. I think the British public, the silent majority, are not prepared to accept that anymore. And much as I believe and actually think that Peter Mandelson will go to prison for those emails, I genuinely believe that the ex-Duke of York should also face justice. And I think that would perhaps be the only way the monarchy can get over this blip in the road, Andrew. Final thing for you, do you believe that this will bring down anybody else? Are there any other royal connections, or is it just Andrew? And we had the Crown Princess of Denmark, for Christ's sake. We've got politicians coming out of our ears.
Well, Michael Wolff, who wrote the biography of Trump, has talked about seeing pictures of Epstein with other members of the royal family. I mean, he's refused to say anything further or make these pictures public. So I think there is a danger that this story could get wider and other members of the royal family be drawn in. I mean, Epstein used Sarah Ferguson and Andrew as a way into the royal family. Many of Andrew's other associates, like David Rowlands, were entertained to tea, for example, by the Queen. And I've seen intelligence documents talking about how Epstein was basically reeled Andrew in, was involved as a Russian asset. And one of the reasons that they thought they were safe is that Andrew was protected by another member of the royal family. So I suspect there will be more that may emerge.
Do you think the royal family's compromised?
Well, certainly Andrew was caught in many honey traps, and there's a lot of compromat on him from intelligence agencies all over the world. But who knows what he said to people if he's been blackmailed. And certainly Sarah Ferguson, I think, also may well have been indiscreet. So who knows where this goes? I mean, when I wrote this book, I was vilified as having made it up and criticizing the Queen. And now, you know, fortunately, all the things I found separately have proved to be true with these releases.
It's absolutely true, and it's a delight to have you on. We'll get you on very soon. Andrew Loney, thank you so much indeed. Author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. It's almost 9 o'clock. It's the biggest story. It's going nowhere. Will Starmer resign? Will the Duke of York, ex-Duke of York, be criminally prosecuted? The Epstein Files saga goes on and on. Push that sports button, Big M. Nearly.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Tom Barkley, whose father owns a Rolls-Royce dealership, I'm joking, senior football writer at Sun Sport. We haven't got long. It's a good time to be a West Ham fan. The Great Escape is on, Tommy.
Hi, Jeremy. How you doing? Wow, straight on. Yeah, we talking about The Great Escape at West Ham. Yeah, they've been amazing the last few weeks, haven't they? Spurs, in particular, are feeling very much like they're breathing down their necks at the moment. Suddenly, the relegation battle seems to have encompassed a whole bunch of different clubs.
I'll just keep the belief. I'll keep the belief. Can I just say I thought that was the greatest game of football I've seen for a long time yesterday. Liverpool 1, Manchester City 2. Unbelievable. Liverpool scoring the 74th minute. I mean, they nearly scored 3. That was a great spectacle for the Premier League, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Fantastic game. Had everything you could ask for, apart from maybe some VAR chaos, albeit that does actually, lead to a nice debate afterwards, perhaps, with the moments right at the end of the game. But what a free kick from Szoboszlai, a City comeback, that save from Donnarumma, and then the sort of mad scenes at the end to obviously change the dynamic of the league title or title race, because had City lost, I think everyone would have just thought Arsenal are going to get over the line now. But with 6 points in it, 13 games to go, City have been in this situation before. Arsenal have been in this situation before where they've blown it. Suddenly, there's so much tension going into this final stretch of the Premier League.
Who wins it? I haven't got much time. I'd love to. Who wins the Premier League?
I still think Arsenal have got it in them. I don't think City are quite good enough.
And do West Ham survive? Tom Barkley?
Yes, I think they do, but I think Tottenham do as well.
Good man, bless you. Get your dad to send me a roller. It's almost 4 minutes to 9. We're live across the United Kingdom. 0344 499 1000. Let's say good morning to Alan.
This is Alan from Salford, Jeremy. It just shows how inept he is, Mr. Starmer. He's been to China, hasn't he? Trying to get trade. He got nothing, only investment into China. And today they've just jailed that Jimmy Lai to 20 years in Hong Kong. It shows what a great statesman this guy is, doesn't it? He should go now, call an election and let him go to Europe, where he really seems to enjoy himself. Thank you.
So there's some people in society who believe that, the flag is the symbol of the country, we should be proud of it, we should wave it, and, I'm one of those. People who are apologists for the British Empire, for apologists for how we've been in the past, and it's almost a symbol of national shame to them. It's kind of like, well, we flew that flag. Oh, I'm not sure about this one.
The whole national shame thing, I believe that actually that's a sort of a greater agenda going on, to be honest with you. It's apologist nature of of so many successive governments now who have sort of almost been forced to be embarrassed by our great British history.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. Across the UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk. It's the home, of course, of common sense. It's the home of the alarm clock Brits, and we are officially the most listened to in terms of how long people listen to speech radio station in the UK. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to be part of it, oh God, what a morning. 0344 499 1000 for your text. No, that's your calls and your voice notes. 87222 for your text. We are officially, ladies and gentlemen, on resignation watch. Will Starmer go today, tomorrow? Friday the 13th? Or will he wait until after the disaster that will be the May elections? Over the weekend, you might have heard this, his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, fell on his sword, was pushed to save the Prime Minister's backside? I've no idea. But it's a bit weird because not only had he said last week he had confidence in him, which is usually a byword for I'll get rid of you for Tuesday, but this is what he said in 2020 about his loyalty to staff.
Hear me out. I had 8,000 staff for 5 years as the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I acted, I hope, in the right way with them, which is when they had victories, I celebrated on their behalf. I picked up awards on their behalves. And when they made mistakes, I carried the can. I never turn on my staff, and you should never turn on your staff.
There we go, that's him. So it's all systems go. Front page of the Mail. So how long has Starmer got? The vultures are circling Lammy. I told him. Rayner's having a makeover. Wes Street, he's up to his neck in it. Miliband, you can't see for toast. Everybody talking about this resignation watch. And check this for breaking news. We just spoke to Andrew Loney. As you know, the situation with the royal family is exacerbated over Andrew's links with Epstein. And we can officially reveal in the last 2 minutes, William and Kate have just made their first statement on the Epstein files. They say they are deeply, deeply concerned. In an unexpected update before the Prince of Wales arrives in Saudi Arabia for an overseas tour, a Kensington Palace spokesperson told journalists in Riyadh, I confirm the Prince and Princess have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remain, as ever, focused on the victims. This is a major bit of news. Can you get me somebody, Robert Jobson, get me somebody, because there are many people who believe, including me, that this is a massively important moment for our monarchy, in that, much like the Queen after Diana died, there was much written, she stayed in Balmoral, looked after the kids. The public thought that she needed to come and speak to them and that her silence was wrong, and she was eventually forced to take the royal flight down and come to London, lay flowers and speak. I think it is exactly this right now for our king. I'm not saying that the problem that is Andrew is his fault, but he has undoubtedly been pampered to, excused and covered for years. And unfortunately, if you are the head of an organisation and there is mud being thrown at you, then you have to come out. It is interesting because I've thought that William wanted to speak for ages, that we've just got this news. In an unexpected update before the Prince of Wales arrives in Saudi Arabia, this is breaking news for an overseas tour. A Kensington Palace spokesperson told journalists just minutes ago in Riyadh, I can confirm the Prince and Princess of Wales have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remain focused as ever on the victims. All of this about the Epstein case. Let's get somebody rolling just to tick. We'll carry on what we're going to do. But that is massive because that is King, the future King William, saying, I ain't sitting on my laurels anymore. You saw his face when his uncle tried to talk to him outside that wedding. They want to modernise the monarchy. If the OK, I'll go further. I think if the monarchy wants to survive, and I genuinely mean that as a royalist, it needs to address this because, and I have defended the royal family forever, there are not, I suspect, enough people in this country who will accept him, Andrew, living in luxury on his brother's estate with no possible chance of being made to answer for his crimes, if they are crimes. Front page of The Sun today, Andy leaked envoy docs to Epstein. If that is true, there is no difference between him and Peter Mandelson, and both, in my opinion, not talks, mine, should go to jail. Morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Jezza! Woohoo! What a time to be involved in politics and this psychodrama we've got going on. Oh my days, we've got to look at the silver lining. You know, this country is going to the dogs, but boy, oh boy, what a soap we're watching right now. Better than anything EastEnders and Coronation Street could produce. But anyway, let's look at the silver lining, Jezza. They've only had 18 months to destroy the country. Every other time Labour have been in power, they've had 4 to 5 years to do it. So, you know, at the end of the day, Starmer's going to throw his dummy out. He's going to call a general election because he's a little baby. He's going to throw his dummy out. Doesn't want anyone else to overtake him. He's going to destroy the Labour Party. And let's be positive. Let's look forward to what happens after this Labour shambles disappear. And let's be grateful they've only had a small amount of time to destroy the country. It's going to get worse before it gets better. but let's stay positive. Great show, buddy.
Yeah, let's stay positive. We will do our best to get somebody on to talk about that breaking news William and Kate have just said about Epstein. I've got to keep telling you this. And an unexpected movement is before he lands in Riyadh, a spokesman from them says, I can confirm the Prince and Princess have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remain focused on the victims of the Epstein case. We'll try and get somebody on before that. This is brilliant. Head to Head, it's called. By the way, can I say good morning to the only Labour commentator that I have regularly? Because this man, this is how good, right, Matthew Talbot is. He got pilloried because on election night, as everybody was going, Starmer, 180-seat majority, Matthew Talbot said what, Matty?
This is as good as it will get.
Yeah, that turned out to be true. Also, good morning to the legend, former political editor of The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh. Trevor, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Can I start with you? You've seen a little bit more of life than me, not much. This is the biggest political and royal saga, trauma, crisis that you've ever seen in your life, isn't it? This is not going away anywhere, is it, Trevor?
It certainly is the biggest, and I think you're right. This is going to get worse. There are so many of these emails, these tranches of emails and documents involving both Mandelson, Epstein, and now it's moving towards the royal family in a very serious way. I think that this announcement by William and Kate in their foreign travels has been carefully thought over for days, and it's the last attempt I think they can make to stop this washing up on the steps of Buckingham Palace. And people are going to start asking questions now about Prince Charles as he was and now King, when he was in Arab states walking away with Fortnum & Mason carrier bags stuffed with a total of €3 million in cash. So, you know, once you start opening a can of worms like this, you never know what's inside and how long it's going to run.
I couldn't agree more. Let's bring it, Matty, if we can, to, I was going to say your leader, but you're not because you resigned from the party. Interestingly, Morgan McSweeney, your type of, person, you worked in that sphere. Either he was pushed or he fell on his sword at the weekend. I thought in his resignation statement, which is why we're on resignation watch, because there were a couple of sentences that I thought, oh, that's clever. He said, in public life, responsibility must be owned when it matters most, not just when it is most convenient. In those circumstances, the only honourable course is to step aside. I've always believed there are moments you must accept responsibility and step aside for the bigger cause. Matthew Talbot, did he aim that indirectly at Sir Keir Starmer?
Only he will know. And actually, regardless of whether I got on with Morgan or not, I think in an era where people don't take responsibility or certainly let advisors fall on their swords, I think it's fairly decent of him. My understanding from people that know Morgan who have spoke to him over the weekend is that he felt he did have to go, which is why he wanted to make that decision. I don't think Keir wanted to let him go, but also after drawn-out chats with Morgan, came to the conclusion that, yes, it may have to be that. Ultimately, the question that people always pose is, will advisors advise but ministers decide? And therefore, if he was the guy that told him to do that and has taken responsibility, then what about the guy who actually made the decision itself? And
Been saying it all day. Been saying it all day.
Well, I think that's why it isn't going to be enough to stave off certainly the Parliamentary Labour Party, but also the general public. General public, 99% of people don't know who Morgan McSweeney is till this week. This isn't like Dominic Cummings who propelled himself into the public's imagination because he'd broken lockdown rules. This is anyone else behind the scenes. So it's not going to be enough, unfortunately.
The front of the Mail, I agree with you absolutely, Matt, and I've said it all day. So how long can Starmer cling on? If he thought naively that by McSweeney either resigning or being pushed and falling on his sword was going to work, as Matty said, the Parliamentary Labour Party up in arms. It's a matter of when, not if now, isn't it, Trevor?
I think so. I mean, what you saw with Morgan McSweeney was the sandbag being thrown overboard from the hot air balloon as it comes down to crash. Just watch the hot air balloon now, because that's what's happening next. I mean, the only thing that's keeping Starmer in place, or the hot air balloon aloft, is the failure of the party to find anyone they can rally around to take his place. I mean, nobody among the contenders for this job, the ambitious Wes Streeting or Angela Rayner, or behind the scenes, the possible kingmaker, Ed Miliband, none of them are really up to the job of being Prime Minister. I just think that in any normal period of our political history, none of them would even be major cabinet contenders. That's the thing that's saving Keir Starmer, the absence of someone better. So they're hanging on in case of something worse. And I think that this will only hold so long, because once you get to Gorton, the by-election, and then the local elections, there's nothing left to keep this balloon up. It's not just Keir Starmer, it's the whole party.
It's interesting for me as well, Matt, if I can, I agree with Trev. I mean, you look at the alternatives, you might disagree, they don't sort of jump out. Lammy said, I warned him over Mandelson. The thought, you can disagree with me, the thought of David Lammy being Prime Minister for 5 minutes fills me full of fear. Rayner's having a makeover. Well, brilliant, front page of the Mail, having a makeover, but, you know, are you really Prime... I don't know if she's Prime Ministerial, but she owes the tax man some money. Of course, the right wing, you said it so well, Trevor, you know, everybody thought Wes Streeting was a shoo-in. He organised Mandelson's best man speech and has been spending the weekend furiously removing pictures on WhatsApp. I just think so many of them are tarred with... I made a suggestion earlier and everybody poo-pooed me. What about Shabana Mahmood, Matt? I thought she was... Is she not popular with the party?
She may be popular with some MPs. I think the difference is you've got to get members on side. And because the members are traditionally, certainly at the moment, quite soft left, which would favour your Angela Rayners, your Lucy Powells, your Ed Milibands, whoever else wants to put themselves forward in that slot, Shabana just wouldn't get the votes. So she might get on the ballot if she wished. She'd be negotiating with Wes, really, if it felt that Wes has got too much baggage. But a bit like Trevor, look, I'm not jumping for joy at any of the options. Nobody really gets me excited. Nobody makes me think, you know, I've always been a big proponent that I think Andy Burnham's the only one that would give us half a chance. And that would be half a chance. I think Angela Rayner would be a useful experiment, whether the country's at a point where it needs to be experimented on and whether there's, you know, what could happen, I don't know. But everyone else, I can't see anything else other than managed decline, which is where we're at now.
Both of you, before I ask you the next question, when does he go? Because I don't. If I was in any way interested, if I was in the position of any of those cabinet ministers and wanted to have a stab, it'd be like being a Premiership manager. I'd be saying to the chairman, I ain't coming until after the by-election and after May, because I'm going to lose both those and it's going to be on me. I'll let him take the brunt. But in the meantime, what a lot of people are saying is this country's floating in the wrong direction and there are so many problems, whilst Labour are at each other's throats trying to get over this whole Epstein disaster. Trev, when does he go? Give me a date.
Well, I'm not going to give you a date, but the obvious ones are either after the by-election or after the local elections. But my suspicion is that, having observed Keir Starmer over the last several years, I think his tendency would be to walk out. And we don't know when that might be.
Not Friday the 13th, not this week, Matt.
Could be.
It could be at any point, and it could be tomorrow, it could be the end of the week, it could be May, it could be after conference. I think this period is going to be utterly miserable, and regardless of who you are as a human being, it's a lot to take. The job of Prime Minister, regardless of who you are, has largely become impossible.
You know what I'm going to say to you? You wanted it tough. Sorry, stop. You wanted it. Have a plan, employ better people and don't lie. And I said that about Johnson and Sunak and May, and I'll say it about this one. The biggest crime in my mind about Starmer, and I think you would probably agree with this, is I cannot believe, both of you, that a party that probably knew 2 years out they were going to form the next election. I don't have to agree with the basis of socialism or the Labour Party, but I cannot believe, Trevor, to start, how utterly unprepared and how lacking in any goddamn plan. That's what I think is one of the biggest crimes. I would have thought they would have spent 2 years coming up with something and would have stuck to it. They've had nothing, and they've lurched from sort of reactive policy to reactive policy and got their fingers burnt, haven't they?
Yes, and I think you have only one person to blame for that, the very weak and easily pushed around Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
I mean, Morgan McSweeney was highly respected among certain people in the Labour Party, and for all the mistakes he may have made, he was probably the only grown-up in the room throughout all this. I mean, whatever your views on the direction of politics, someone has to keep the party in government on an even keel. He managed to do that despite the constant reversals and U-turns by the man who was actually making the decisions in public, who is Keir Starmer. And from the moment that he took power, Starmer has wobbled on every single major issue that's come onto his desk, from international affairs on Chagos and beyond, right down to the issues over gender and whether a woman can have a penis. I mean, look, when you've got someone like that who is totally unmanageable, what on earth is the Chief of Staff supposed to do with him?
Yeah, no, agree. Matt, final question. Love having you both on. You resigned your Labour Party membership recently, so appalled, and you were the only person on the night of the election, and you were ostracised because of it, who said, and I quote, "It won't get, this is as good as it gets." If Keir Starmer is shoved out the door, will you rejoin the Labour Party? Do you see a future?
Not at the moment. There would have to be so much fundamental change, not just with regards to policy, but with regards to people behind the scenes. And an organisational means. I've got no rush to do anything, join anybody or anything of the sort. So I will continue to watch on an independent observer like the rest of you.
You're a good man, mate. We love your honesty. To you and Trevor, thank you so much indeed. Resignation, well and truly on then. Keir Starmer holed up in 10 Downing Street. The protagonists are all going for his job. We have that breaking news. If you haven't heard this in the last 2, 5, 10 minutes, William and Kate, just ahead of his arrival in Saudi Arabia for an overseas tour, a Kensington Palace spokesman has told journalists in the last half an hour in Riyadh, "I can confirm the Prince and Princess of Wales have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remain focused on the victims." That breaks ranks with King Charles. Morning, Sharon.
When a dustbin's full, it has to spill over, and I think this is just the spilling bit. I think something is really, really going to hit the fan, because there's a lot more people involved in this than just the people that they're looking at. How do we know that they're not a deflection on some real bad stuff? We can't have gone on all this time and, this just be the worst thing. I think it's just the start of it. Good show, Sharon from Yorkshire.
Good show, Sharon from Yorkshire. She says even bigger names. What bigger names have you got than the King's brother and the ex-Prime Minister's allegedly having threesomes? And oh, my Lord. Listen, I said we were going to... He's come back. Brilliant. Andrew Loney, author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. We finished 20 minutes ago, and out has come this statement. If you're just tuning in, I'll tell you exactly that Andrew and I were talking about how the pressure on the royal family is going to grow, and you said, and I thought you were spot on, that there's a bit of a power struggle going on between King Charles and William, who wants to modernise, wants to look ahead. Charles is, and hasn't said a lot. Is that out of loyalty for his brother? I wrote it down. You said the problem that is Andrew has been covered up for years. Well, in the last half an hour, Andrew, the Prince and Princess of Wales have broken ranks and announced from Riyadh via their spokesman that they are deeply concerned by the continuing revelations and their thoughts remain focused on the victims. Your initial response to that, my friend?
Well, I'm glad. I mean, people have been calling for this. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff in the papers this morning. I think this is a slight distraction. I mean, of course, one's thinking of the victims, but, I think what they need to be open about is actually what the palace knew and when they knew it and what they've done. Because I think what we do need to do is to find out exactly how Andrew has been protected up till now, and I think continues to be protected. I don't think we've got the full story of what happened and the flight from Royal Lodge and all that. So I think we just need a little bit more openness about actually what's been going on and why they didn't address this problem much earlier. The line is they didn't know, but I do know that they did know, and they were briefed many, many times by for example, the heads of the Foreign Office, MI6, all sorts of people were giving them information.
Giving them as an entity or individuals, my friend?
Well, certainly the monarch's private secretary, I know, was being briefed, and I know that they would have briefed the monarch. So, I mean, we know, I just know from my own research that protection officers have always had to report back to the head of Royal Security, and that goes back up to the sovereign. So, I mean, they had plenty of information coming in. So they knew about this. They've tried to keep it quiet. They now, because of the public outrage, have had to do something. But I think just saying that I feel sorry for the victims isn't really going to cut it with the public. And I do think there needs to be investigation. Andrew was bringing people were being sex trafficked to Andrew in royal palaces. People must have known this was going on. I think there needs to be a proper investigation of actually not just in Parliament about Andrew's activities, but also the palace need to do something to satisfy trust because otherwise it looks like a classic cover-up.
Well, it's exactly what I asked you. Did you suspect they knew more? What you're saying is that the palace kept quiet on what they knew.
Absolutely, and they've known for years, and they tried to shut this down. And as I say, they used strong-arm tactics, saying that they wouldn't give to media organisations who tried to raise this issue. They wouldn't give them access to members of the royal family. There were legal threats. There were a whole series of techniques were used to suppress this story, going back, I would say, 15 years.
It's unbelievable. When we think about, like, Front of the Sun today, Andrew, Andy leaked envoy docs to Epstein. When we started this programme, so I love this programme because it just changes as the hours go by. People were saying, if he's done the same as Mandelson with Epstein documents, giving him the heads up on stuff, then he is in the same boat. Can you see a situation if the royal household has continued to close ranks, and in your mind for 15 years, can you see ever a situation where the police will be interviewing individual members of the royal family?
Well, I don't think anyone in this country is above the law, and if they have material witnesses and have information, yes, of course, I think they should. I mean, clearly, the problem is the sovereign cannot be subject to legal action. But I think they can certainly, we've seen this in past history, heirs to the throne, for example, have been interviewed. But I do think that, everything's focused at the moment on the palace. The real question is, will these files on his time as a trade envoy now be released, as they should be under the Public Records Act? I spent 5 years being refused by the Foreign Office and the Department of Business and Trade from seeing any of these files, which I knew revealed the sort of things that this BBC article that Sun have picked up on had. And I think if the government is serious actually about dealing with this problem, as opposed to just yet another cover-up, then they need to ensure that those files, all of them, going back between 2001 and 2011, need to be made public as soon as possible, because I think it would give us plenty of information about how Andrew has misused his role. And if Mandelson is going to be investigated for this, Andrew should be investigated. And if he is, the evidence for Andrew is much stronger than for Mandelson.
See, that's really interesting for me, and you can only assume if you're listening to this, you know, you've been working on this for years, and you rightly said in the last interview you were ridiculed. But the truth of the matter is, I have a great increasing belief in the British public, and some parts of the media in my past I loathe, but what I love about the right side of the media, people like you and the things we're doing here, is the British people will not give up on this. The silent majority want an answer. Let me read you the first two texts I've had since you were on. Carl. Jez, just my thought. I believe the King should apologise and abdicate in favour of William. Let William clear out the old guard and start afresh with the young, modern monarchy. And here's a question, Andrew Loney. Listen to this. Martin Slightholme. Has the Prince of Wales ever expressed any support or sympathy for the victims of the rape gangs here in the UK, says Martin in Norwich. No, I don't think so. To me, that sums up that this also is a turning point where the silent majority are going to go, we might not be anti-monarchy, but if you are going to exist in this world and use social media and have all of those things that you have, you're going to have to play the game like the rest of us and answer, as you quite rightly say, when the light is shone on you and your behaviour.
Yes, I've been calling for royal accountability and transparency, particularly on finances, for probably a decade and been ridiculed for it. But now it seems to be people realise that, you know, we haven't, that there isn't the accountability we need. It's been abused. I mean, this is also a national security question. The Chinese and Russians have penetrated the British establishment using the greed of various members of the royal family as the easy way in, because they knew there was no scrutiny. And what I would say is, if there is nothing to hide, then there should be no problem about releasing these files. Or, for example, getting the protection officers to give statements saying that Andrew wasn't in London the night Virginia Giuffre claimed he was. I mean, it'd be very easy for him to prove his innocence. But I think as these releases come out, it's proving more and more just how rotten the state of Denmark is. And as I say, they're at this crossroads. Do they actually address this issue, as Prince William seems to want to, or do they stick their head in the sands, which is what the King is doing?
Andrew Lowney, listen, great, mate. I know you've got a busy day and we really appreciate you coming back. Andrew Lowney, they're the author of Entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York, reacting, he's been on twice this morning, two times, reacting to the news that in the last half an hour, ahead of their arrival in Saudi Arabia for an overseas tour, a spokesperson for the Prince and Princess of Wales, a Kensington Palace spokesperson, said, "I can confirm that the Prince and Princess have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remain focused on the victims. For many, that's a tick. For others, they go, that's ahead of your dad." For Andrew Lowney, he says that's not enough. That's window dressing. How much did the royal family know about the problem that was Andrew, and for how long? I'm a royalist. The Queen gave him 12 million quid. If he has, as the front of the Sun says, been leaking confidential documents to Epstein whilst he was a trade invoice, surely, like Peter Mandelson, the ex-Duke of York needs to feel the full force of the British law. Morning, Dino.
Morning, Jezza. It's Dean here from South Wales. I think it's clear as the nose on your face why Andy Burnham wasn't allowed to stand in that by-election, because, let's face it, we all know what had been the outcome, and we all know that he'd be the next Prime Minister. I think Starmer selfishly denied him that so he can keep his agenda going. UK politics at the moment is at the lowest it's ever been. I've never known such a weak Conservative Party. There's no one really who I would vote for.
Can he continue, and can he be trusted to keep the country safe? Because he ignored MI6 warnings as well. So what was the calculation that made him avoid, say there's a risk, but I'm going to go ahead anyway? That has to be answered. But I mean, the first duty of any government is to keep us safe, and he appointed someone who he knew. I mean, he's called the Prince of Darkness, for Christ's sake. I might call him Captain Underpants now.
Yeah.
But
Captain Dirty Underpants.
Yeah.
They're not very clean. Who is that woman?
Can we trust Starmer to keep the country safe?
No.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Julie here from 10. Who's on at 1? I'm only joking. The housewife choice, Ian Collins. My God, it's all going on this morning. We started this morning with, so how long can Starmer cling on? Carl Turner is a Labour MP, him in just a tick. It's then sort of moved on. This whole Mandelson-Epstein saga has moved to the Duke of York, front page of the ex-Duke of York. Son, Andy leaked envoy docs to Epstein. Much comment this morning about how the royal family need to step up in the last 20 minutes. An unexpected update ahead of the Prince of Wales' arrival in Riyadh. He and the Princess have announced that they're deeply concerned by the continuing revelations and their thoughts remain focused on the victim. The truth is, for many, that's not enough. This whole debate is raging. Now, let's take it back to politics. Starmer, I don't know why I'm laughing, alone in Downing Street. Morgan McSweeney's gone, apparently shaking, apparently depressed, and we are on resignation watch. This morning, he sent out his government minister, Baroness Jackie Smith. This is a fact, don't look at me like that, Christian, who resigned as Home Secretary because her husband put his joy of watching porn on her expenses. This was Jackie Smith when asked about the victims of Peter Mandelson earlier on another channel.
Prime Minister Morgan McSweeney knew about Epstein's victims last summer when they appointed Peter Mandelson, his friend, to that job in Washington. Why weren't they thinking and talking about the victims then?
Peter Mandelson lied about the extent of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He lied about...
But we all knew, the Prime Minister knew, he was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's.
That Peter Mandelson lied about the extent. He lied about the depth of the support that he had provided to Jeffrey Epstein. When that became evident last September, the Prime Minister sacked Peter Mandelson. He sacked him in the middle of the night, and he has taken responsibility both for having made the wrong decision in appointing him and also now in ensuring that in the future public appointments are stronger in terms of the way in which they're carried out, and that focus on tackling violence against women and girls remains at the heart of the government that he's leading.
I don't mean to be rude, but, I mean, she looks like she's been in the job about 10 years. She doesn't even look like she damn well believes what she's saying. Let's say a very good morning to the Labour MP for Hull Easter, a strong critic of Sir Keir Starmer, Carl Turner. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, Jeremy. I'm very well indeed.
Well, 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 my friend. You've made the front of the Mail again, haven't you? What to say, sir? How long can Starmer cling on? I'll put that question to you, Carl Turner. Not long, it seems.
Look, I think the PM has an opportunity now to win favour with the Parliamentary Labour Party. He's taken decisive action, and it's clear that he's been devastated by the revelation. So I think he's got a chance. The PLP is his first point of call. He's got to win favour with them and then with the country. But it's not going to be easy for him. We've got by-election result coming in 20 days from now or something, and then indeed the elections in May. So the pressure's going to be on the Prime Minister.
You don't think he's a dead man walking, Carl?
Not at the minute, Jeremy, but I think it's going to be choppy waters. I think he's got a job on his hands, actually, if I'm being honest, and I think he can get through, and I hope he does.
I don't think he will, but I'll ask you this. He's addressing Labour MPs later today. What, in your mind, Carl Turner, does he need to say to gain some traction with your fellow Parliamentary Labour Party MPs?
I think he needs to say that Max Sweeney is gone, and the briefings that were happening under Max Sweeney against Labour MPs, cabinet ministers and ministers are going to stop now. He's going to be more inclusive of the Parliamentary Labour Party. He's going to bring people from all wings and branches of the party into government, hopefully. I think he needs a government of all the talents, not just the ones that were chosen by Max Sweeney to serve. I think he needs to look again now and bring others in.
But you see, the problem with that is, and you know me, I love having you on and I appreciate it. If McSweeney has to resign because he advised Starmer to appoint Mandelson, right? Why does not the man who took that advice and ultimately make the decision have to resign for actually being the person who made the ludicrous decision to employ somebody when everybody knew, you and your colleagues, that this guy was a wrong-un? That there are many, I mean, I understand your position, I'm not stupid. There are many who are going, it doesn't matter what he says or what he does. The fact is that was a catastrophic misjudgment. It tells you everything about the man, and actually what you say, they do the opposite, and they say, without McSweeney pulling the strings, he's buggered anyway, because there's nothing about him that, I mean, you know, there's nothing about him that will galvanise the party. That's what I guess I'm asking you, Carl.
Jeremy, people who don't know Keir Starmer, and it's his fault that people don't know him, I suspect, but people that don't know him think that of him, I think that's fair. But if people do know him, they know that he is capable, they know that he's committed to the job. It's not an easy job being PM. It's
He
a
hasn't shown
24/7.
any capability, though, to be fair, in the last 18 months, has he? Not really. I mean, he's lied to pensioners, farmers, waspy women. He's lied to veterans. You know, because you've been very vocal and what I call a proper MP. And it doesn't seem to have had a grasp or a finger on the pulse of what actually is going on in our country, man.
And I think there lies the problem, Jeremy, to be honest. I think the reality is it's not just a one-off, the bad advice.
No.
Keir Starmer has been over-reliant on poor advice for a long time. It's the U-turn after U-turn after U-turn. We're not allowed to call them U-turns, of course. It's just thinking again. I mean, you know, that's the sort of line that we have to push. But it's U-turns, let's be honest. That's what it really is. U-turn at the point where he thinks he can't deliver the policy because the Labour Party, the Parliamentary Labour Party, who've been ignored for far too long, are not going to put up with it. A good example was last Wednesday. We had this Opposition Day motion. It was a no-brainer. You can't possibly begin to try and prevent the disclosure. The Prime Minister and this Chief Whip thought that you needed to prevent disclosure in relation to security matters, which I think is fair. But we have the Intelligence and Security Committee. They are there to sift those documents and decide what ought to be in the public domain. You know, it was a mistake, that's the truth. But the PLP said, we're not putting up with that. You know, they deserve to have this information. This is about the prolific, the industrial scale, the most outrageously industrial scale child trafficking paedophile that the world, not the country, the world has ever seen. And for that reason, we want that information to be out in the public domain. It wasn't about Mandelson, in my view. The appointment of Mandelson was a mistake, and the PM is prepared to admit that and is sorry for it. But it was about the fact that it appeared as if we were trying to prevent disclosures going into the public domain, which we think the public ought to be allowed to see.
When did you last speak to the PM?
I've not spoken to him. I've had a text conversation with him over the weekend.
What did he say?
Several. You know, my advice to the PM has always been fairly direct, and he's always polite in his response. But there was no conversation as to what he might do with Max Sweeney. I can tell you my advice to the PM was oust him out the door, get him out, get him gone, and let's try and start again with a view to making good the mistakes we've made in the past. It's just
you mean a third chief of staff in 18 months? I mean, listen, I was more critical of the Tories than you at the end, but that's not great. The first one didn't even last the 100 days that she was due to talk about. Then this one. Do you expect a reshuffle, by the way, of the cabinet ministers or just backroom staff, as I call it?
Well, I'm not going to be dictating to the PM what he ought to be doing, but my view is that he needs to bring talent in from across the party.
Who?
And I hope he brings ministers in to jobs. There's people like Paula Barker, for example, who's an extremely impressive member of Parliament, and she was a shadow minister and did incredibly well. She was sacked because she didn't like the Labour Party's stance on a particular policy issue, which was Palestine and Gaza. There's people like Dan Carden, who's not on the extreme left of the Labour Party. He's a moderate, really, now. He used to be left-wing. He used to be one of Jeremy Corbyn's acolytes, but he's come to the middle centre of the Labour Party. He's a brilliant guy, incredibly impressive. People like that should be in. I think Andy Slaughter was the chair of the Select Committee, actually. He was sacked over Gaza and Palestine as well. I think he'd be a brilliant Justice Secretary.
Can I ask the wrong question? Can I ask the wrong question? Are you advocating people who want to talk about Gaza and Palestine because you know that 4 million people, Muslim votes, are absolutely essential to the Labour Party in the next elections? It's a straight question. So you know where I'm going with that because, Streeting's only got a 600 majority. Jonathan Ashworth, one of my favourite MPs, genuinely mean that. He lost his seat in Leicester to 5 people who stood on just Gaza and Palestine. Didn't even mention local issues, Carl.
I think the reality is, Jeremy, you need to talk about these issues, not because you're trying to win favour with a particular core of the electorate, but these issues are important to the country, actually. And I think when you're sort of in a position as a parliamentarian and you're not allowed to voice your opinion, that's where the problem is. Tony Blair didn't used to crowd people out. He'd bring them in. He'd speak to them. He used to have Dennis Skinner in every week, I think, for PMQ's preparation.
The Beast of Bolsover.
The Beast of Bolsover. Can you imagine the scenario? Be shouting and screaming at the Prime Minister, telling the PM what he ought to be doing, this and that, but Dennis would have been included.
Thatcher's favourite politician, she once said. Dennis Skinner.
Yeah.
She loved it. She loved it.
And she was a class act. I mean, she used to encourage Dennis, and she dealt with him incredibly well and did better for the fact that she'd taken him off. That was the truth, and that's what the Prime Minister should be doing. He should be looking and inviting people.
I'm not being unfair when I say I don't think it's in his character. I don't think it's in his DNA. Let me ask you 3 quick questions because we so appreciate your time. Does Starmer lead you into the next election, Carl Turner?
I don't know, is the truth. I hope so, but I don't know.
Do you expect cabinet resignations in the next few days?
I don't think cabinet members will resign. I think there might be 1 or 2 ministers who call it a day, but I don't think the cabinet will.
And if he goes, who does Carl Turner want? Rayner, Streeting, Miliband?
I don't want to do that, Jeremy, because we've got a leader and we've got a Prime Minister. I don't want to choose his successor when, in fact, there's no contest. Do you know, it's really difficult to get rid of the Prime Minister. You can't waltz into Downing Street and say, right then, mate, get your bags packed, you're off. It's a matter for him if he wants to stand down. We're a democracy. He's been elected. People said they want to vote Labour. I don't think we won the election, by the way, on the basis that people were enthusiastic about Labour. We won the election on the basis that people were sick to death of the chaos that we had with the Tory government.
But that speaks for why there seemed to be no plan and nothing was proactive. It was all reactive, and that's why people are going. That's why it's such a sham. He's left the Labour Party. Matthew Torbett, what to say about him, he's a friend of mine. He said on the night of the election, this is as bloody good as it gets, and he was dead right, wasn't he?
Matthew's a great mate of mine as well. I'm impressed with Matthew Torbett. He's a good man. We ought to be trying to keep people like Matthew in the Labour Party. He's left now. What a shame that is. We ought to be saying, get yourself back. Look, let's try and work together.
He believes in what you believe in, and I admire him for that. Do you know what I mean? It's like I said the other day, Carl, something I never thought I'd say on this, right? There would not be a part of me that would probably agree with anything that Jeremy Corbyn said, right? But we live in a democracy, right? You and I. But I'll tell you something, at least he put on paper, that was his manifesto, stuck to it, and he got more votes than Keir Starmer. I don't have to agree with Jeremy Corbyn, right? But I admire him politically. You just said the same about Thatcher. There'd be nothing about Thatcher that politically, but you respected her as a leader who stood by what she believed, and you don't get that from this man. It's too namby-pamby. It's too, as you said, it's all about officials and PowerPoints and, you know, focus groups. Tell us what you think, man.
Yeah, I think he's been shackled by Max Sweeney for too long, and I think now Keir's released Max Sweeney from the fold. I think there's an opportunity to win favour with the PLP and then the country. But I'm not pretending to you now that I think we're going to win the next general election if it came early. I think we've got time to do the business and deliver. At the minute, we've been delivering, but we're not communicating what we're doing because there's too many U-turns, there's too many shenanigans, there's too much briefings against Minister and MP and Cabinet Minister. We need to work together to win for the country. For goodness sake, the country must be pulling their hair out thinking, what on earth is this shenanigans now? We're sick to death of hearing about this stuff. Get on and do the job. We've got too much things going on in our own lives to be worrying about what's going on inside number 10 Downing Street. Just get on with a job that you get paid handsomely to do, frankly.
Couldn't agree more, mate. And we genuinely mean this, Carl. Love having you on, pal. Really appreciate your perspective from Labour's point of view. Thank you very much indeed. Carl Turner, Labour MP for Hull East. Just very quickly, morning, Jez. I just caught up and watched your interview last week with that rude, ghastly Lord Foulkes when you gave him some facts and he started saying, why did you lose your television show? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. What an appalling way to behave. Well done, says Carolyn Shoreham-on-Sea. Just for anybody who didn't watch that, I forgot to tell you at the time, Lord Foulkes, the one who went, why did you lose your television show? In 1993, it seems, that he had to resign from the front bench as a defence spokesman for the government after admitting to being drunk and disorderly. What's that phrase, Christian? Oh, people in glass houses and all that. Back in 3.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There I was, 3 hours and 50 minutes to sounding professional. I'm still in the middle of a biscuit. We say a very good morning to our roving reporter. She and I are going to Birmingham later, but I'm not telling you why. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Samara Gill. Listen, I thought you were my roving reporter. You don't have any bloody show on this station.
Yeah, I know. I'm exclusive to no one,
Well,
clearly.
it's great.
Yeah, it's...
Great, I thought, yeah. That's what happens, you see, Christian. You make somebody and then they just... I'm so glad Carl Turner said he's been shackled. I thought he said something else for a moment there. He's been shackled by the Labour Party.
There's
How
no
are
one
you?
like you, JK. I'm very happy to be back in the studio.
My God, mate, honestly, this is getting more bizarre by the minute. We started today, resignation watch, our cabinet minister's going, does, selling McSweeney down the line, his rather poignant message. We watch it, apparently sat in Downing Street, depressed Starmer, so be it. Then you move on to Andrew, and because I think there's a real sense of the royal family need to speak, much like the Queen after Diana's thing. And then in the last half an hour, the Prince of Wales and Princess have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remain focused on the victims. Straight away, people are going, have they mentioned the grooming gangs then? Not enough.
Of course they haven't mentioned the grooming gangs. Neither has Starmer, really. I mean, when I was down in Hastings at Starmer's speech on Thursday...
Oh, you went to Hastings?
Well, I did go to Hastings.
How was that?
Well, that's why I wasn't in studio. It was very interesting, actually. I've never seen Starmer like that. He seemed completely perturbed. He seemed enraged, but he also seemed very dictatorial. He seemed like nothing is going to get in my way of the leadership, and he just seemed like he'd been, advised wrong. He was obviously throwing people under the bus left, right and centre. And you're right, he also apologised to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. What about the hundreds of thousands of British girls that have been at the hands of sexual abuse? Starmer, have you ever apologised to them directly? No. I mean, he's a spineless man. He really is.
Do you know what? Can you imagine if you actually listened to this and you were Keir Starmer? Honestly. Right, you spoke to some anti-Starmer protesters outside the venue in Hastings last week. Do you know the last time I went to Hastings? I went for a dirty weekend when I was 20 and ended up in hospital. My appendix burst and I spent 10 weeks in the Royal East Sussex Hospital. Not that you're interested.
Is that what burst, Jeremy?
Thank you. Very good, Samara Gill. Play her package, please.
It was a soggy morning down in Hastings, and it turned out that the weather was not the only thing that was dampening the mood. Prime Minister Keir Starmer was there to deliver a speech about Labour values, renewal and trust in what should be one of the safest Labour seats in the country. But Mandelson, the infamous Prince of Darkness, loomed over the day, casting his long shadow over Starmer's plan for renewal of towns.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
The Prime Minister's momentum didn't last very long. Halfway through, honks of horns from disenfranchised locals that had blocked him in punctuated the speech, a loud reminder that discontent runs deep, even in a Labour heartland.
Starmer's in there. What would you say to him right now? I would say to him that farmers are not happy. The threshold change on the APR BPR has made a difference to people who are in reaching the expensive areas. And we would like it to be reconsidered. It's weeks away now from coming into force. Just people have lost their lives over this. There have been suicides over this. It's such a badly thought out policy. It's affecting our food security. It's just all wrong.
Hi, I'm Leslie from the Together Declaration. I'm here to say to Starmer, I don't think it's legitimate for you to have suspended the local election in Hastings. We're really not happy about it. What I would say is that this is authoritarian, it's anti-democratic, and we don't want it, but we need to hold them to account. We want them to be responsible, and we don't want to, have our rights to have our say taken away from us. That's not democracy.
Now the political earthquake has a new aftershock. Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's former chief of staff and key advisor, has resigned this weekend, taking responsibility for pushing Mandelson's appointment. With Mandelson's reputation in tatters and McSweeney out the door, Keir Starmer's leadership is facing a real crisis of confidence. From Hastings to Westminster, with locals shaking their heads in the gymnasium and headlines at home, the big question is, what does Keir's future hold, and for how long?
Oh, not very much, I don't think, do you?
No, not very much at all. I think Hastings is an extremely safe Labour seat. He was
Is
meant
it?
To, well, he was meant to be right at home there.
Hastings is Labour?
Well, it's not...
South of Watford Gap, what's going on?
Well, I think, you know, he was meant to be around his supporters, but you know when you can tell when outside there are protests going on. You know, he really is someone who does not have the public support at the moment. I was looking back on an interview. I know we haven't got much time, but I was just looking at it. He did an interview with The Guardian, and it's his most personal interview yet. They asked him, what did you dream about last night? He said, I don't dream. He doesn't have a favourite book or poem. He was asked if he preferred tea or coffee. He said, I don't know.
I don't know.
Either or both.
Wouldn't you want him to go Angela Rayner in red? I mean, everybody would go, at least there's something about him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, exactly. I just don't think he has any conviction. I mean, we used to have William Wallace Churchill leading this country. I mean, this is someone who U-turned on his own speech that he was going to give us today. So I do think his days are numbered, but
Dead man walking,
I
mate.
fear, though, because after him, the Labour Party is going to veer very far left.
I agree with that. I also, who would take it knowing, let's hear me out, that you're going to lose potentially trouble in the by-election, you're going to lose the May elections potentially. Does anybody want to come in? Can I just ask, because we haven't got long, something's happened. Have you been to Angela Rayner's hairdresser? Looks quite wavy. What's going on? Have you been to have you seen the TikTok? I'm having makeover
Well,
before
I asked for the Ange when I was in
Did you?
makeup today. Yeah, I was like, please give me the Ange because I'm ready to come and usurp anyone who's ready to, you know, who's ready
There
to
you
give me
are.
their
So
chair.
the woman, I mean, basically, has Samara copied Rayner or has Rayner copied Samara? But there's curls asunder. So we're off to Birmingham.
Yes, we
Keep
are.
your door locked. I spent 15 years there. Lovely. Or was that Manchester anyway? It's north of Watford Gap. We'll have fun. Thank you, Samara, who will be with me today at that Reform rally. Transparency, interviewing all the candidates. That'll be fun, won't it? It will be. And Nigel will be speaking. It's almost 5 to 10. The legend that is the Queen of Westminster, Julie Hartley-Brewer, next.
I'd vote for Sharon in a heartbeat in any election, but against a convicted terrorist, I'll definitely vote for her.
I'm interested to hear what Ash has to say about this being from
Oh,
Birmingham.
yeah, of course,
but,
mate.
no,
Well,
but also, he said that he doesn't want Islamic people to be friends with Jews.
That guy will probably win, you know, he'll probably win this jihadi, so Sharon needs to change her way. Yeah, but I know that area very well. Hall Green is where it is, and it's changed a lot. Handsworth, like you said, as well. But yeah, the election, Birmingham is basically a lost city.
UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk Across.
Welcome back. Almost 10 o'clock. We're live across the UK. What a morning it's been. We started off with, is Keir going? I think Friday the 13th. He's apparently stuck in Downing Street, shaking like a dog that's... Never mind. Now it's moved on to Andrew. The Prince and Princess of Wales have talked about victims. The British public are demanding more from the royal family. The big question, Julia Hartley-Brewer, is how bloody deep does this go, man? We've had a Danish crown princess saying, there's an email saying, will you have my babies to Epstein? There's a prime minister who apparently allegedly had a threesome.
Listen, the thing about the great and the good and the rich and the powerful is they love people who are more rich than them. They're all obsessed with money. Do you know, one of my favourite revelations over the weekend was that the Russian secret agents were saying about how greedy Mandelson was. I mean, that's quite telling, isn't it? I mean, after Morgan McSweeney's gone, but basically said the decision was wrong. Well, you're the one who advised the decision, but nevertheless, the decision was wrong. I don't think this takes away any shield from the Prime Minister, because ultimately it comes down to him. He made the poor decisions. I would not normally say this. I would be not remotely surprised if he was gone